It's November 27th. There's not much of November left, and chances are, if you're in the U.S., you took yesterday off because we're just coming back from the longest holiday weekend of the working year.
Wait, do people take Cyber Monday off?
They do.
Really?
Yeah, it's one of the most, like, I'm just going to go ahead and take a vacation day on Monday because then you get 5 days off, and that's better.
Cyber Monday is definitely the most corporate holiday ever, right?
Yes.
Because, like, the Friday after Thanksgiving, that's not real. Like, Black Friday, it's really just an extension of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't have Thanksgiving, you wouldn't take that day off.
Well, the deal with Black Friday is that it's a working day where, like, most people have off, except if you work retail. So people
food.
Or food. People are going around trying to do stuff. And so that's why that happened. Like it became corporate because it was like, we're going to let you have a working day off where everybody has it off, where you can go buy stuff. And so it's like, oh, I'll go to the stores and there's sales. So then it becomes this intense, fierce competition for your attention and which store you go to and something. They only make profit in the last month of the year. I don't know.
Also intense competition in the stores themselves, which is some great video footage every year. I haven't watched this year's crop yet. I've been too busy.
You know where there's not intense competition? Rural broadband providers.
There's anything but. You could almost say that there's monopolies in this world. But good news, we're currently at what, 10.4, 10.3?
Yeah, something like that.
So Ajit Pai and his magnanimous, loves the consumer. He wants to raise that to 25.5. I can't remember what the up is on that.
Yeah, it's not much. Now, let's remember the 96 Telecommunications Act was 45/45 by 2006. And so now it's like, well, maybe we can get 25 megabit in rural areas.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've grossly overestimated. Currently 10.1, moving to 25.3.
Yeah, so you don't get any upload at all. The upload's just barely enough for those ACK packets. So that's just sad and depressing.
The other hidden agenda here, and we always have a hidden agenda when it's Pi, right? is that there was going to be a reduction or a freeze in the money that was being given to the major telecoms for this kind of thing. So he's saying, well, no, let's not freeze that money. Let's keep the money where it's at, but we'll bump the speed up, and
so
that'll make up for it.
This is the money that they get from the government to offer network access. Meanwhile, they fight to classify their services as information services rather than communication services so that they can decide, they can editorialize the content and decide what sort of things that you carry. Oh, that's foreshadowing for...
But it's not taxpayer money. You pay this directly on your bill.
Oh, okay.
It's a line item on your bill that goes to...
Well, the FCC allows them to collect it, though.
Yeah. I mean, you can't say no to it.
Yeah.
You can't opt out of that program. So
it used to be the case that it went to the FCC and then back to the providers if and only if they met certain conditions, but that was done away with before Pi. We can't blame Pi for that.
He was definitely talking about, in this article, he's like, it doesn't make sense to serve those people in the business plan, so we have to offset that by giving them free money, of course. And... like you say, there are milestones, or there were, and it makes sense. It's like, okay, we're only going to give you this money if you can actually deliver speeds that we want. And the FCC has this whole system to measure that. And
which has been dismantled in recent years.
So we should know, right? Well,
Ars Technica has another article on this, and it's Ajit Pai isn't saying whether ISPs deliver the broadband speeds you pay for. And this is a little bit of an article that talks about some of those kind of things and some of the problems that they've run into, where it's like, it's up to 100 meg on your connection as long as literally nobody else in your neighborhood is using the connection. Then you can have it all. But when there's 50 other people trying to watch Netflix in your neighborhood, good luck getting 3 megabit.
So Ars Technica actually freedom of informationed the FCC on this. They dodged it as long as they could. Then they came back and they said the scope is too large, narrow it down. And so they were like, okay, just give us emails that have this program's name in them. And then they didn't deliver those. And then they came back and they were like, it's taking too long to do this. We don't want to do it. We might do it eventually. And they did get a hold of the third party who tracks all that stuff. I think it's survey based. That might be one survey that I would actually answer, though, like if I knew what it was. But the survey company was like, yeah, we're ready. The reports are ready. we can't show them to you because they only go to the FCC, but we've been doing our job 100%. These reports are ready.
So the reports exist, and it's not a lot of headache to give them, is what you're saying.
Probably. That would be my estimation. Maybe that guy's lying just to besmirch Pi.
Oh, if only there were monetary rewards for blowing the whistle on corruption within federal government. I mean, we'd be millionaires overnight.
Well, we talk about the robocalls. The robocalls are a scourge, and they haven't let up at all post-election. They just switched to a different kind of robocall. And one thing that you don't get a lot of is robo-text messages. But you might soon.
Well, the FCC is considering making text messaging an information service, but the whole information service versus telecommunication services, that's Title 1 and 2. That's literally Title 1 and 2 that we always talk about.
Yeah, so Twilio is one of these automated messaging people. Now, the FCC is actually ruling against them. So Twilio is saying we should be able to send text messages however we want. FCC is saying, no, it needs to be the communication service because it lets us protect you from spam. But again, there's probably some hidden agenda here.
Yeah.
Because it lets the FCC have a lot of control.
It's information service versus telecommunication services. Information service implies that you could have a different text messaging provider other than your cell phone provider. This is actually sort of a complicated issue because when the whole terminology for information service provider and telecommunications provider was conceived, it was the telecommunications provider is somebody who provides your physical link, and an information service provider is like a website, or a better example would be Netflix or Hulu or something like that, some service that you subscribe to that runs over your telecommunications service. But
you have things like WhatsApp, which effectively does what they're talking about. What they want is access to SMS.
Yeah, Twilio is arguing, and I think they would be pretty successful in arguing this, is that their customers, if they have customers, are quote-unquote paying for this thing, but a lot of messaging providers block their messages because they think it's spam.
Well, their customers are the people sending them, though,
yeah,
not the recipients.
Well, what if the shoe were on the other foot? I mean, a lot of providers block those SMS messages on that side as well on grounds that it's spam because of complaints. But if the people have actually opted into receiving them, it would be like your telephone number not working selectively.
Especially if you're a competitor of
a
giant mega corporation. Yeah, so it is, it's kind of there's no winner in that situation. No. Either we get SMS spam or we get our overlords deciding what comes through to our phone.
Yeah. And this is some of the complexity of the whole Title I, Title II internet argument is in this argument over text messages. So if you want another lens for understanding that argument, you should check this article out.
But you can emulate SMS with raw data. So I don't think...
the best example I can think of is Apple's iMessaging service, which does that, which doesn't use SMS at all.
And it could be end-to-end encryption if you do it that way.
Yes, and in fact it is.
Yeah, so I mean, Twilio, it seems like Twilio wants to prey on people who can't not get something.
They're trying to weaponize that freedom that they have, maybe.
Are you foreshadowing again? Maybe this article about the cable giants weaponizing the First Amendment.
TechDirt is saying here that literally the legal argument from these cable providers and telecommunications providers is that they have a First Amendment right to control the content that you have access to. Now, this is specifically talking about a cable channel that's apparently run by an African-American dude, and apparently the cable companies are like super racist or something.
Well, so he claims. That's a weird thing, though. Like, now they do take public money, so that's something that you have to consider. Oh, I wondered what the hell you were doing. And now we pause for a moment while we reconfigure the microphones.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Oh, that's good.
Bye.
No, come back. Where are you going?
Thanksgiving.
We need Krista. What does Krista think about cable giants weaponizing the First Amendment, where they're like saying what channels, they're exercising editorial control over what channels can and can't be seen?
That's pretty much par for the course. I mean, it's literally every episode seems like we have a story like that. So
Well, they should. It makes sense. So, like, you shouldn't be able to hold a gun to the head of a cable company and say, you must carry my channel. That's kind of a business decision, right? But they do take public money. But still, like, how many channels are out there that they don't carry? There's got to be a ton, right?
I hope this argument doesn't carry over for websites. It's like, you must not block my website. No, we can totally block your website because we have editorial control. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, that's confusing, isn't it?
But to block versus not add to our service, it's a much different thing.
Is it though? Because then wouldn't you just say like, oh, you don't? It's the same. Like you could have the package that has social media. You don't need that. In the same way, you don't need a package that has sports on your TV.
But they have to pay those channels, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's true.
You don't pay a website.
No.
And so the
No,
argument...
advertising agencies are now like watering, like their mouths are watering, thinking about we could charge people to come to our website.
Well, that was the great, like the worst case net neutrality fear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be like tiers of
internet, which happened, I think, in a South American country.
But the thing about this that maybe separates it is that this guy claims he's gone to these corporate meetings and they were just straight up racist against him and basically told him, you know, he didn't belong there or whatever.
They actually had that in the court filing, so they must have some evidence of it.
I don't know.
They just said it to him outright.
Well, that's what he said, yeah.
That's
basically.
outrageous.
I think the quote was something like, boy, you need to sit down and shut up. Right, you know? But this would set a precedent. Like, wouldn't everybody just create a channel
Perhaps. Yeah.
and say, you're racist if you don't run my channel?
That's so strange. This is one to follow, though. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm surprised that that was the legal argument from the cable company. That seems like not the first argument you would go for, the whole First Amendment rights.
And that's not a broadcast channel. That's a cable channel, which is an extra service that you explicitly sign up for. I don't know. It doesn't seem like free speech to me.
We're going to follow that one and see how it goes.
Well, we do know that the government loves to regulate, and they're so excited to regulate the internet and cable and everything else. And now a new player has entered the game.
The U.S. could regulate AI in the name of national security. I don't see this ending well. They classified encryption as a munition. If they classify AI as a munition, it's going to be about as effective.
Well, this article, of course, they cover that some of the best work in AI is open source.
Yeah.
The corporations don't seem to be getting ahead of open source. And with encryption, open source was exempted from that whole regulation thing. So if that were still true, I don't think this would do much. It would create another useless regulatory body.
Yeah. Well, it took a while.
Create jobs.
It took a while before the whole open source thing, because at first even open source stuff was not was still considered a munition. Like PGP, pretty good privacy, went through a lot of headache in the late 90s, early 2000s, from what I recall. Because something segue into another story about stuff like that.
If you'll recall, President Trump tweeted that he felt he was being spied on by the Chinese through his handset. And the Chinese trolled him a little bit by saying, hey, if you want some good security, get a Huawei phone. They're really secure. And we all expected Trump to just tolerate that and not retaliate at all, right? Because that's
par for his personality type. You know, he's very noble, and
that's what he does. But shockingly, no.
The CNET article has U.S. has asked foreign allies to avoid Huawei. American officials are reportedly focusing on the cybersecurity risks of the Chinese telephones. So, yeah. What can you say? I mean,
hide your kids, hide your wife. It's a dated reference.
Hide your Wi-Fi.
Hide your Wi-Fi.
I don't know.
I don't.
There's not really. I would like to know what the evidence is that the Huawei is doing anything any worse or better than like all these Cisco backdoors. Do we really think that there are 5 Cisco backdoors?
He felt like he was being spied on.
The OPM hack.
Feels are more important than reals.
Those Juniper certificates. I mean, come on.
I think this is like everything else we talk about when it comes to security. Of course the Chinese are hacking you. Of course they are.
Of course the CIA is also hacking.
Yeah, but everybody else is too. So pick your poison, you know?
If it were open source and everybody were on the same playing field, how good would that be?
It's a dream that's not going to happen.
It's not a dream. It's like that's the only winning move is not to play. So,
Well, you're not going to have a phone?
no, I mean to like not participate in the arms race of insanity, but to open source everything so that everything is as secure as possible. When you have any kind of a backdoor, whether it's an introduced weakness or a known vulnerability, that's how stuff like this can happen. That's how stuff like the OPM hack can happen. We did it to ourselves.
Yeah, except they want to find out the information. They're not going to not play.
Yeah, I mean,
We have to know. They're like the information. You guys have that friend in college that just like hoarded stuff, and it's like, well, you've got all these like pirated movies and so like, what are you ever going to do with all this? And it's like, I don't know, I've just got it. And it's like, why do you have stacks and stacks of hard drives like this? This is crazy.
I did have a friend like that in college.
or DVDs.
Or DVDs, yeah.
That's who you went to if you wanted a totally legal DVD.
I think sometimes that's just, like some people deal drugs just because it's the only way they can be popular.
Baby. I thought he was a nice guy otherwise, though. But we did go to him for DVDs as well. That was a thing.
Speaking of guys who are only popular because of technology and what they've achieved with it, we've got a story about Mr. Elon Musk.
Elon Musk's extracurricular antics have reportedly sparked a NASA safety probe with SpaceX. So NASA's just wondering, it's like, hey, you guys are doing all this stuff with rockets. Your guy seems like a loose cannon. Let's just, better safe than sorry. Let's just make sure that your safety protocols and all this kind of stuff are up to snuff.
They claim that a lot of people are sort of behind the scenes blowing the whistle that things they're playing fast and loose over there at SpaceX.
Safety is our third priority.
Yeah. And of course, they had to bring up him hitting that joint on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yes.
Which seems like that's not really relevant, but
you're not supposed to do that if you work for the federal government, even in states where it's legal.
You don't go to space if you're a stoner, kids.
Well, you might go to space, but not literally go to space.
If you want to really get high, don't get high. That's the message.
Figuratively, not literally. Literally.
And on to foreign news. We all remember the link tax. Was that Article 13?
Article 13.
Article 13, and the world said this is going to be terrible, horrible things are going to happen, and then nothing happened, and people forgot about it. Well, now something might be happening.
Google News may shut down, I guess is the word left out of the headline, over EU plans to charge for a tax on links. So Google is actually, I think, fanning the flames here a little bit. Not just the link tax, but also the whole, we're going to shut down YouTube in Europe because we just have no way of verifying the content. So this is more of that.
Yeah,
no memes in Europe.
They did a similar thing in Spain, I think. And Google, true to their word, just noped on out. They're like, oh, sorry, we won't play ball with that, and your people simply won't get Google News. And they did see a drop overall in traffic to news websites. So I don't think they would care to see traffic drop, though, if they could generate more money overall. Yeah. So, who cares how many people read this? We just got to get that paper.
Yeah. Well, that's what the YouTube algorithm has become. We don't care what the content is or what people are doing. We just want eyeball watch time, and we want to make sure people don't leave the site. So if somebody comes to the site and only does like one piece of content and then they leave, that is not highly ranked or counted by the algorithm.
Well, in the world of social media, this is not the social media section because these are state laws, but it's about social media. And often we talk about stories where people incriminate themselves over social media. It's shocking how often people will do that.
Lawmakers are starting to notice.
They seem to think that somehow people in authority are never going to see it. Oh, there was the great story about the guy who dined and dashed.
Oh, yeah.
At Chipotle.
Yeah.
At Chipotle, yeah.
And he totally got burned. He could have gotten away with a sweet lawsuit. But he'd been on Twitter talking about committing the crimes that he was using.
If it wasn't for those meddling kids on Twitter.
So now we see maybe one of the most intrusive ways. I guess traveling is worse, but this one's pretty bad.
So this is New York, of course. Where else would it be? This proposed law would let the state search gun owners' social media and internet history. Yes, you would have to turn over your password. Though I'm not sure how that would work with two-factor authentications. Like, here's the password. Good luck with that.
It's only if you're buying a pistol as well, which I thought was strange.
Well, because handguns are concealed.
Oh, okay. But, never mind.
What I mean,
Yeah.
wouldn't you just, if you know that that's there, wouldn't you just have a fake social media account that you've curated for 6 months and be like,
Get started now.
Yeah.
But I would say for the two-factor, they probably just like, because there's a whole, in New York, it's crazy. Like you actually have to go in and do an interview and stuff, I think.
wow.
So they probably just make you do it at that time and look through it. So they're searching for a variety of things. It's kind of, you talk about Orwellian.
They would be. This isn't actually a law yet. They haven't voted on it yet.
They're going to be looking for language containing slurs, racial/gender bias, threats, and terrorism. What if you just hate women?
Considering domestic violence is a thing, they may still consider that a red flag. You might not shoot up a school, but you might shoot your wife.
Well, if she had it coming.
I guess. But yeah, that's a terrifying thing. And just, wow, pro criminal tip. Don't use social media.
Would you, do you think they would believe you if you said you didn't have it? That's another interesting question.
They would likely search for it because,
Yeah.
you know, there'd be a public. So if they could find it, you would have to give it to them. But if they couldn't find it, yeah, you could probably just say, I don't have it.
That's not me. That's a spookily similar person who, you know, does stuff that's the same. Never mind.
Well, you remember the Obama phones? There was a big controversy back during Obama's reign because he did that program. A lot of people believe that he was giving iPhones to the homeless. I don't think it was quite that,
No.
No.
but it was a program to get homeless people phones, which a lot of people thought was a bad idea. Well, someone who thinks it's a really good idea is the current ruling government in India.
This story was fascinating. So in digital India, government hands out free phones to win votes. So it is working, you know, in terms of like being a popular politician or whatever. The article talks about how it is actually working, but it seems like the article focuses on much younger people. I mean, they talk about a kid who was like 14 or 15 or something and who's using his phone for just literally everything.
Well, the story we talked about too, like the guy's mom, and she was like, they called her right before the election on that phone that they gave her, and they're like, "Do you have any like concerns or anything?" And she's like, "Yeah, I do actually." And they're like, "Great, we'll just relay them on. Bye." But like that was it. It was like, oh, okay.
Well, you're not allowed to campaign within like 6 months of an election, something like that. But they were basically campaigning in the guise of, "Hey, how do you think we're doing?" You know?
Yeah.
The other hilarious thing about these phones, the background is the leader guy.
And you can't change it.
Yeah, and there it comes preloaded with, you know, bloatware, which is all of that guy's speeches and recordings and a news program that's just about him.
Free copies of Mein Kampf for everybody.
And they talk about how these phones aren't really that great
Yeah.
and they don't really work all that well, but they always work when these guys call you.
They're not even the $100 Android phone. They're the like 2 or 3 generations old $100 Android phone that's just barely okay. But still, if you don't have anything, that's better than nothing.
Yeah. Probably upgrade from nothing.
And it is, you get like a certain amount of data per month. So a lot of these people are in very rural places. And this is only one part of India. What do they call the state? Municipality. I don't know what they call them. 70 million people.
Yeah. That's a lot of phones.
There's so many of those people. Well, we talked about the regulators and their desire to regulate literally everything. And now this guy, former FBI director, he's not satisfied with U.S. regulation. He's telling Australia how to live.
Yeah, the retaliatory cyber attacks are the only way to stop China, says the former FBI director. So I can't say that I agree, but what he's saying is like, look, they're going to intrude. Hackers going to hack, basically. They're going to try to get into the infrastructure and the water system and all this kind of stuff. But really, I think that the more intelligent thing there to do would be to create a lot of honeypots that look like infrastructure and, let them do their worst and then have teams analyzing that so that you can shore up your defenses.
But the logic to me breaks down.
Because he says it'll make them stop.
Yeah, of course it's not going to make them stop.
Exactly.
It's going to make them do it a lot harder.
Yep.
It's an arms race.
Yep.
Now, of course, you can't just roll over and say, maybe if we do nothing, they'll stop. The pacifist approach. But it's madness to think that China's just going to be like, "Oh, you whipped us. Good move.
GG.
You taught us a lesson."
No re.
And if you want to know how sophisticated this stuff can get, you should really look into how the cyclotrons were sabotaged in Iran, because that story is honestly fascinating.
You're talking about the Stux?
Yep, Stuxnet.
They got a new Stux.
They do.
Yeah.
But it looks like somebody took the Stuxnet code and did some stuff with it to make it their own and re-released it. But I'm not going to say who or why, because we know that they have those tools to make it seem like somebody else did it.
It was a certain nation state that is in the Middle East, and not like all the other ones. Well, we complain. Here we are in our here in the hills of Eastern Kentucky, and it's tough getting internet here. It's rough. We live deep in the mountains, but you know who has it a little bit tougher in terms of rural connectivity? People who live deep in the mountains plus snow.
Canada has no plan to bring broadband to rural and remote communities, the watchdog says. Canada's been collecting money for this, and they say that they have a plan, but then this watchdog has said, okay, tell us a little bit about your plan. There's no plan.
It's like, there's nothing.
Like,
they get satellite internet. That'll be fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's literally like, or do you plan to subsidize private businesses to bring that out? Or is this going to be a government program? Is this going to be some sort of like subsidy thing where existing companies will be rewarded? And literally the answer is,
I love those. I get sucked into those stupid shows about like, Canadian gold mining and
like
drilling
living
for
out in the middle of
oil
nowhere.
in the Great White North. And you do wonder, like, they'll have little shacks. I guess it's all satellite internet. But some of those places are so remote, and there's a fair number of people living there, drilling oil or whatever. How do they live?
not with the internet.
That's what those
apparently.
TV shows are supposed to show you. Are you not watching?
Well, they don't ever cover the most important point of how do they get internet.
If you're in Canada, this is also bad news because this type of infrastructure planning takes about 5 years. So the fact that there's no plan here means that if they had a plan tomorrow, it's still going to take about 5 years for that plan to be realized.
You also got to wonder, like, how robust does that infrastructure have to be to deal with all that weather?
Well, if Eastern Kentucky is any indication, a strong wind or the lightest of rain takes it all out for hours.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you got freezing rain every Thursday. That's going to have to be some
Yeah,
serious
it's like
equipment.
feet of snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, factor in
don't get a ton
snow
of
and
snow
like
here.
moose chewing through the wires and stuff. I mean, we've at least got the bear population under control anymore.
It's actually been increasing. The black bears.
But
They don't have a taste for fiber optic cable
Yeah,
yet.
they don't-
Aren't they
they're not really
protected?
aggressive.
We want bears, right?
Yeah, they are. It's actually a good thing that we're
We're
seeing
pro
more of them.
bear here in Kentucky.
Who wouldn't know that?
A fed bear is a dead bear. Don't feed the black
Have you
bears.
been killing bears, Wendell?
You can get a license for them now. You can hunt them.
Well,
It's a very limited take each year.
if you poach bears, let me tell you, you're going to lose credit score. And that's going to be bad news for you if you're in Beijing.
Beijing to judge every resident based on behavior by the end of 2020. This is that AI thing that we were talking about where the cameras will literally recognize you and what you're doing, and it sort of knows the stuff that's going on, and it knows what is happening to you and this kind of thing. And I don't know if it's the next story or if it's going to be in the nonsense section, but it's really sort of like this sounds really Orwellian, and it is really Orwellian, but this plan is already well underway. It's already been in implementation for several years. We've reported on it a few times, but it's literally a personal credit system where, like, if you smoke or eat on the train, you're going to get demerit points, basically.
It's going to be in the nonsense section because I completely forgot about it because it wasn't formatted correctly. So you talk about how it's been in use for a while. I was shocked by these numbers. Already in the program and its limited use, like it's not already even all of Beijing. 11 million flights and 4 million high-speed train trips have been denied. People thought they were going to take a little trip and they scanned their ID or whatever. Maybe not even that. It might have been the facial recognition. And I was like, no, bro.
Does it even tell you like what you did? Do you think, or is it just like your account has been suspended?
It does tell you stuff you can do to raise your credit score.
You can donate blood
Yes.
and raise your
Wow.
credit. You can literally give your blood to buy back your imaginary government
Well, I was
points.
gonna say, like, what if you work really long hours and it's like, I'm gonna eat on the train, and then someone complains about it, and then your score goes
That's
down.
not okay.
That's antisocial.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like now I can't get to work all my crazy hours,
Yeah. You
but I
better
need to
donate
eat.
Better donate some blood. What?
You better eat extra so you can give that plasma up 2 or 3 times a week.
I don't think you can give plasma that often.
Yeah, you have to regenerate
Plasma's
it.
weird, yeah.
I know China might have the same kind of rules as we do.
Yeah, plasma might be like, give as much as you want. It won't hurt you.
Well, good news if you're a donator of things inside your body, specifically organs, they're going to be able to get to their destination much faster.
You can have a kidney. I've got 2. I only need 1. Maryland test confirms that drones can safely deliver human organs. So the story here was pretty interesting. They got a kidney for donation, but it was a little too damaged to use in a human.
Gently used.
Gently used kidney. And so they decided this team has been waiting for a while to do some trials with human organs, but they didn't want to take the chance on something going wrong with the organ, and then that organ meant for a human being, they would not get the transplant. So they used this dud kidney to do their analysis, and they found that they could get the kidney across town faster with less bumpiness and with a more steady temperature than they could with conventional means.
So here he is.
Look at it.
Yeah. So the cool thing about this is especially designed just for this purpose because this has individual motors in each of these little rotors. So there's no heat in the base, because you don't want to heat up the kidney. That's bad.
Warm kidneys. Disgusting.
This kills the kidney.
It's got to be 2.5 degrees C.
And it also has stabilizers. And they've figured out that this was actually less bumpy than a propeller plane delivering it, which is one of the fastest ways that you can do it. So obviously limited in range, but it's not for long trips because organ donations are usually just within a radius anyway.
Yeah.
So this is like you get in a car accident and get your head chopped off one side of the city, somebody's on the list on the other side of the city, and they're prepped by the time the organ gets there, and it goes right in.
I think the max trip on this was like 2.5 kilometers, which is a pretty
Decent,
good trip
yeah.
for being.
And you could
ready to
probably
go.
bunny hop those things, right? Like you could just whip it off one, put it on another one.
It's easy to imagine hospitals might get this system on the roof. Like there's just a shed on the roof, and it's like, fire up the drone. We've got an organ, and they just go up there,
Just
load the
pile up
coordinates
on
in
the
it, and
interstate.
it just zips right over to the. I mean, just the logistics of it is way easier sounding than any of the other alternatives.
Are you guys organ donors? Do you have that on your license?
No,
I think I did sign mine.
I signed mine.
I never have.
Do you not want to give away your organs?
I'm not necessarily opposed to it. It's just not something I ever think about.
I don't need them. Take them.
And this is going to be great, except in New York, because all the private Amazon helicopters are going to run into these things and just kill more people.
Oh, can you imagine walking to work one day or walking to class and then it's like there's a drone collision overhead and a kidney falls on you?
Yeah, a kidney just slaps you in the face and you're like, what is this? And then the helicopter hits you. Well, let's say there is a horrible helicopter accident or any other sort of act of God that takes place in New York. The good news is all of your Black Friday orders that are UPS at least will be routed around it.
UPS is using AI to deliver holiday gifts in the worst storms. So it looks at the weather patterns and it seemed to be indicating that even order volume, because sometimes certain routes might be overloaded or something like that, and the AI factors all of that in, and it's we've got to route your New York stuff through Memphis because
if they shut down an entire hub because of weather, and everything goes to another hub, that'll overload it.
Yeah.
So it'll actually guard against that,
Yeah.
and it will spread everything out.
it's exciting times for AI because I need my on-time deliveries from Amazon.
It is pretty amazing. Although I don't think Amazon uses UPS, do they?
They do.
I thought they were FedEx and private.
We get at least some packages from UPS.
That sounds right.
Maybe it's not Prime. Maybe it's third-party shippers. I don't know.
But that is very cool that just because one city is cataclysmically destroyed doesn't mean we have to wait for our packages.
Some sort of savages.
That's what's important, right?
I have a feeling this is how the society, like the collapse of society, comes about. It's like some washer maker on like the Canadian-U.S. border, stops making washers, which creates a supply chain issue, which cascades to somewhere else, and all of a sudden your Amazon Prime grocery deliveries can't happen because of a chain of dependencies all the way back to the washer maker in the rural town just outside of Vancouver or something.
And then 50 more companies step up to fill the void. And then we have too many, and that destroys the economy.
Well, I'm saying that because AI is running the supply chain, nobody really knows what happened other than everything just ground to a halt.
I thought you getting a house was going to destroy the economy.
Well, have you seen the headlines?
No.
Things aren't going well.
Everything's going to crash now that you bought a
It
house.
started affecting Bitcoin first.
Yeah.
And it's just going to cascade.
Well, I've seen Bitcoin going down.
Oh, Bitcoin breached 3,000, which is...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I hadn't checked on it since like last week.
That's like, I could actually lose money on Bitcoin. I never thought that would be the case. It's like, I got in so early. How could I lose money? And here we are. Well, I remember we talked, I don't know if it was last week, we talked about the 24-hour AI Chinese newsman. Remember him?
Yep.
And his speech,
I thought it was fine.
but it wasn't great.
It was not.
It was obvious that he wasn't real. And Alexa suffers from the same problem. You can tell Alexa's not a real girl.
I honestly thought Alexa's sample recording here was an order of magnitude better than the Chinese one, but still not great.
Well, that's where I was going with this. Alexa will now get better at her speech.
We're also announcing that we're quitting the news.
Alexa's just going to do this.
We're just going to have an Alexa sitting here.
Be sure to check out the Level 1 store's holiday guide,
Holiday.
Patreon, and those affiliate links. Alexa will soon be able to read the news just like a professional. They've got some sample recordings. You should go listen to those. We're not going to play them here.
Just like us, because we're so professional here at Level 1 Tech.
We don't do the newscaster inflection, but the newscaster, like...
The non-regional
she knows.
diction.
Yeah, she knows. She knows.
She's probably already programmed with non-regional diction because they didn't want to confuse people.
Probably.
But she is still, I don't think, as good as Google's duplex
No.
that was doing the hair appointment.
Google's duplex that was doing the hair appointment. Google opened that up a little bit more because people were skeptical about it, and there is a place where you can go and you can access that through the API now, and they've got 5 or 6 different voices, and it is that good. Like, you can feed it something, and it knows, and it sounds like somebody is just reading it on the other end. Honestly, I think Google is just messing with me. Maybe that is actually what's happening, but you feed it stuff through the AI and you tell it a little bit about what you're doing, and then you get this thing back, and it's like, it is really good.
They're just burning money.
Yeah.
They have like a bunch of people with pleasant voices locked in cages deep under the Google facility. And they're just, they tase them if they don't read whatever's
There's
in
a
front
sign
of them.
on the wall that's been crossed out, don't be evil.
If they don't read it perfectly, they get tased.
And if that sounds like something you want to be a part of, then
Work on the. Well, I would say that if you don't want to be a part of that, you need to work on your resume, because a lot of people that are graduating from college are otherwise unemployable.
yes, resume, as we call it here in the land of the free, and other people call it a CV, curriculum vitae, which I believe translates into work of your life or something like that.
Yeah.
This is my life's work, to
We had
work
to
at
make
the
one of those-
Safeway and bag of groceries.
For my art thesis class, we had to do a CV instead of a resume.
Well, you probably did it wrong because
Probably.
you didn't have this tool.
This CV compiler is a robot that fixes your resume to make you more competitive. I am very sad that humanity is reduced to making your curriculum, vitae, a 1-page or 2-page paper. It's like, this is my life's work. And then who wouldn't look at that and weep? I mean, it's just, mine basically says computer janitor, and it's just.
But on
come
top
on.
of that, they talk about how employers and hiring people weed them out at just rapid pace.
Yeah.
And this is only for tech people, but this claims to be able to format it and shift things around and put the right language in there to keep you from being part of that quick cutting, to fix the common mistakes.
37% of the resumes that I read have basic grammatical and punctuation errors, like the most basic of basic punctuation and grammatical
When we were
errors.
hiring for an editor, we had some weird
I'm not-
resumes and portfolios come across.
I'm not even talking about there and there. I'm talking about 2-paragraph run-on sentences.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Modern students are not good at the English language, it seems.
But it's weird because there are, at least at our school, there was resources to have your stuff reviewed by a professor or by someone at the careers office.
Literally just spell check in Word would help
Yeah.
these people.
Are you insinuating that the people that get thrown out on that first cut of hiring deserve it in a big way?
And software is only masking the problem.
Could be. But that thing's free. If you want to go use it, if you're going for a job, why not? Why not give it a run, see what it comes up with?
What if it changes, you're female, it changes your name to a male name?
That'd be funny.
Well, I don't know. I mean, in the modern, like Google and Facebook, that ain't going to help you.
That would be a fun social experiment, though. It's like Michelle's to make their name Michael and see if, like, literally that's the only change, and see if the automated, they get an interview where they didn't get an interview. I'm actually okay with tools like this as long as somebody's going out of their way to, like, use it and make it great. But if some talentless hack can sign up to a website and they can just sort of pound the keyboard with their fist into their CV and then the robot will turn it into something reasonable, that's bad because that's wasting the employer's time.
Well, I can't remember what the company was. Remember, there was some company that was using AI to hire tech workers?
Yes.
And the AI it found real patterns. And it's unfortunate because one of those patterns was there was a certain women's college.
Yeah.
And if it saw that, I was like, no, we've never had anything of value from here.
Yeah.
Just get rid of this.
There was also just like the way that women phrase things. Like just the writing style was slightly different, and it started to, because the sample size that it had before was mostly from men, it started to select against the women. It's like, oh, unintended consequence, but not looking real good.
It's like the AI where they train it with racist data, and it's like, oh man, why is this AI racist?
Oh, Tay, Microsoft Tay, the Twitter account. They're like, I can't believe this happened. It's like, well, you kind of put it out, and 4chan found it. I mean,
we do.
Well, this story is, usually I like to front load the good news stories, but we only really had this one. So I wanted to put it at the very end. It's like, a wholesome ending. This story it's one of those things where, science can do some terrible things. Like it can create an AI that tracks your every movement and won't let you on planes if you're an asshole. But then it turns around and does this.
These paralyzed individuals operate a tablet with a brain implant. They actually did a surprising and impressive array of things with these brain implants. They ordered groceries from Amazon. I think they played a game or something. They wrote messages to each other.
One woman played the piano.
One woman played, yeah.
See, she had this interface, and she was a musician. Before all these people had Lou Gehrig's disease, so they're severely limited in their movement. And so the way this works is it's not like a special interface. It's just they got this little chip in their brain. They described it as baby aspirin size, so pretty small. And then they got this little, you can see sort of, I guess this is the reader here. And they used a regular off-the-market tablet with like a virtual mouse. And these people just did everything with their mind through that little...
I want one.
Are you ready to go through the surgery?
I've experimented with eye tracking for stuff like this, and I never could quite get the formula exactly right to my liking. But it turns out eye tracking is handy when you have a lot of monitors for moving your cursor around really quickly.
Well, you might want to wait because the maximum they could get here
I want like Gen 3 or 4.
33 words per minute.
Yeah.
That would be a little frustrating.
That would be a little frustrating.
But if your current is 0 words per minute, 33 is pretty great.
I have always wanted to wire up the eye tracker to use blinking to fire in first-person shooters because the response time is so much better.
But then you're closing your eyes.
You're not going to get better at COD Blops, Wendell. It's not going to happen. He's so frustrated when we play it.
I am too. Man, I know a lot of people talk about the hit detection and all that stuff, but I'm sorry. It's just that we're bad.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it's we're bad, I think, but sometimes I do genuinely think like the amount of armor and the times you get what's supposed to be a hit and it's clearly not, it's like, I
used to be a good Half-Life player.
But how are the other people? Oh, what was it? The 25th anniversary of Half-Life this week.
Yeah. The 25th anniversary of Half-Life this week, and it was also the anniversary of the general theory of relativity, which was like, I don't know, like understanding that was like, that's the first time that I maybe understood something that was artistic because it was pretty.
I don't know if most people would describe that as artistic. But, a couple of facts to make you feel old. And that's what we'll leave you with.
Yeah. Damn you, Gabe Newell. Bring me my Half-Life 3.
We had some good news, and then we just kind of ruined it. So, sorry, guys.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, but the good news is, if you're driven to, try to take your own life based on that bad news, and you mess it up, you can still send text messages, maybe.
Wow. That makes me feel better.
Please join our Patreon. I'll see you later.
Today is November 28th. It's Wednesday, and it's almost Christmas time.
You're not allowed to say that before December.
Yes.
I already put my wreath up on my door. I haven't decorated my apartment, but I put the wreath up.
I was at a furniture store yesterday. Not only was the Christmas music cranked, the employees were all singing it.
They must have had an extra traumatic Thanksgiving holiday. I mean, Thanksgiving with the family, I understand that can be traumatic, but no, that's not the answer.
You should, so you're buying furniture. You should wait till the first of the year because that's when everything goes on sale.
What am I going to do in the meantime?
Just sit on the floor like the savage you are.
I need a bed.
You don't have a bed now?
Well, I have like a really old. I'm getting rid of the. I don't have a bed currently. I just have mattresses on the floor like a savage. Listen, I don't think you understand, Krista. I've lived in squalor for years preparing for this moment.
Well, yeah, you could save some money though if you buying all your furniture all at once if you wait till for the beginning of the year.
I don't know. Some of those Cyber Monday deals are pretty good because the furniture places are feeling the heat from the electronics places, and there's some good deals to be had.
They always get rid of all of their last year's stock though.
You know what?
Before all the new styles come out.
You know what the big meme now is mattress in a box. Have you heard of mattress in a box?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like how can that be?
Not good.
You can't fit a mattress in a box.
No, not good. I'm slightly curious about purple, but no, because purple is like slightly different, and maybe it's not terrible.
Isn't that the one that?
That's the one that was a little controversial.
But that was like covered in like cancer or something, wasn't it?
Well, it's the little beads they used to make it stop sticking to itself, which I understand they have changed.
Well,
anyway,
I wasn't a big fan of the Christmas music, and if I could have, I would have cut the cord to it.
ESPN just lost 2 million subscribers, according to Cud this year. Cutting the cord this year.
You got it there. Good job.
ESPN, so cord cutters. I love talking about cord cutters. You should.
This is, of course,
everybody should.
This is Disney, and Disney's feeling it. They're feeling the cord cutting, but they're striking back. They created ESPN Plus, which is a lot like Disney Plus, and they got 1 million of those people to sign up for that.
Yeah, the Roku and Sling have this deal with ESPN if you do that, and that's not actually a terrible way to get ESPN. I don't know, but somebody I know that's interested in college football, it was like, what are my options? And it turns out that's actually a really cost-effective option for doing that.
Also, you get NFL now on Amazon Prime, which had to hurt some people's feelings. I don't know if you get every game, but I see it on there sometimes.
The nice thing about the ESPN Plus thing is you just get a menu of all the games. It's not like multiple channels. You just because
pick which one you want to watch.
Yeah, a lot of times the games are going on simultaneously, so it just seems to work.
Yeah, and if you're a real degenerate gambler, that's what you need. You want to be betting on women's lacrosse, you know. And speaking of cuts, someone who's feeling the cuts probably much deeper than ESPN is poor old Foxconn.
Oh, Bloomberg, Apple iPhone supplier Foxconn is planning some deep cost cuts. So apparently the new iPhone XS and XR are not selling anywhere near as well as Apple had hoped. I think they've dropped the prices. And so Foxconn is a major supplier for Apple and everybody else. And so, of course, Foxconn is going to down revise their estimates as well.
One of the things that was interesting is Apple talked about, hey, we're just going to modify our approach a little bit. We're going to focus more on, Apple Music and Apple TV and all the add-ons. And we might raise the prices per handset, maybe try to sell some more peripherals. But none of that helps Foxconn.
No.
Foxconn is all about volume. How many iPhones can we make this year? And that number's going down.
It's not enough. Apple is even adjusting the price in Japan to try to raise the demand. So maybe there's going to be a silver lining for Foxconn. But they've cut the price to $750. And the XR compared to the iPhone X or the iPhone... Is it iPhone X or iPhone 10? I don't even know.
iPhone X, I think.
XS.
Well, X and XS are different.
Is the XR above or below the XS? But above the standard X.
It's the XR is a cost down version of the X, but it's basically the same. So why would you ever buy the X if you can get the XR for $250 less?
Is Japan, are they into Apple? Aren't they like non-Apple people mostly?
I don't think they care, as you shouldn't.
Yeah, but they're big online gamers, right?
Yeah.
So if one or the other has the hot game, I bet that makes a difference.
If you have a piece of technology that genuinely works and works well with your software ecosystem, then the sales will be pretty good. But I don't know. This is an interesting one to follow. We kind of predicted that because it was like the iPhone, the new Apple iPhones were not significantly better than the iPhone X. So
but they were more expensive.
One was more expensive. One's less expensive.
But it's ridiculous the price point they've driven those up to.
Yeah.
They did the same with the iPad Pro, which it seems like a strange strategy.
Okay, so what are we, 3 weeks into iPad Pro?
Yeah.
How are we feeling about it now?
I still really like mine. If I had an older model, I probably wouldn't have upgraded, but I do like the iPad Pro for drawing.
We got to do the iPad Pro review on level 1.
I've got an outline for it. I just haven't filmed it.
Gotta be so many downvotes.
So a lot of people are saying that Apple, like the reason they're failing is because they've lost sight, right? They're not who they were. They're not a bunch of hipsters with their head up their own asses. They're just pure corporatism now. And maybe somebody in Apple is feeling that because they're trying to get back to their roots.
We're hip. We're relevant. We're suddenly a player in an unlikely Hollywood realm. They bought a film studio.
They bought a film studio to make all their original content. They've got some really great ideas for, but
not just any film studio. Let's review the titles that this film studio has released before. Lady Bird, Moonlight, Room, Hereditary, 8th Grade, A Ghost Story, and Ex Machina.
Ex Machina is actually a good movie. Lady Bird and Moonlight, I think, were both like award show darlings. Like those were both very popular for award seasons.
They don't make any money. So the highest grossing one of these was $49 million. So pure, smelling their own farts Hollywood bullshit.
Are you saying that Ex Machina is too cerebral for a general audience?
I've never seen it. I've heard good things about it.
It's a good movie.
But that's the only one of those movies I've ever heard of.
I wouldn't say it's like super cerebral, but it was good.
It's okay. It's sort of the faux cerebral where it tries to be cerebral, but it's actually not.
But it is definitely
It was a good movie.
Right in the wheelhouse, I think, of old Apple. Like when it was the cult of personality.
Yes.
So maybe they'll find their, rediscover themselves.
No.
So you think, all those movies, like, they'll have the Apple products now instead of...
I think that they're just they're looking at how much money Netflix is making, and they're looking at their giant war chest of cash and saying, how can we turn this giant war chest of cash into even more cash?
Well, into relevance.
Or,
how can we convert cash to relevance? Because we're losing that, and it turns out that's all we ever had.
Well, how do you be a cultural leader? Like Apple has become...
That's probably what it said on their slideshow, so it sounds more, inspirational.
And
not, I'm trying to be relevant.
There was probably a little booklet that they handed out, and that was the title.
Well, that's what Steve Jobs wanted. I mean, that's what he wanted to set a trend, and he did for a lot of things. And so movies factor into our culture a lot.
It is a good way to get people on your team of mindless purchasing robots. But who doesn't want to be a mindless robot? The workers at Amazon in Spain.
Oh, the TechCrunch article. Amazon warehouse workers in Europe stage "We Are Not Robots" protest. From what I've heard, this echoed to all of the other Amazon warehouse workers, even over here in the States.
Echoed.
Yeah. See what I did there?
Well, according to here's a tweet where they did a little video, talk about what they wanted, and it's basic stuff, like, hey, maybe let us pee.
Maybe.
Here's some shots of the protest. Now, this organization claims that they had a certain turnout. Amazon says not. Amazon says it wasn't nearly that big. It was just some, ne'er-do-wells, and it didn't slow anything down. So who do you believe?
Yeah. On the one hand, if you are staffing a warehouse and the only thing that is required of you is you find the product and you put it in the box, and you want some sort of satisfaction doing your job, do you ever really find that satisfaction in that type of job? I mean, some people
I think they just want to be able to go pee and have a lunch break. Like they're not asking for fulfillment. They're just asking for basic human decency.
I would think going to pee is okay.
Well, no.
What about eating?
Because the way it works, remember all those stories, it's not...
Your little buzzer starts going off.
Yeah, they're like, you can pee whenever you want, as long as you're getting 100 picks per half hour or whatever it is. Yeah. So these people are saying that's just not realistic. Remember the Amazon driver who pooped on that guy's lawn?
There's no time to poop. I have to poop here. I'm sorry.
So
I have to go.
There's definitely some empirical evidence that kind of supports these guys.
He took a baggie, like a dog poop baggie, and just scooped it up. Sorry.
That's probably what he normally does, but
No, it was a girl. Oh. And it was a little tiny girl. And they had a picture of the poop, and it was massive.
She'd been holding that all day.
Yeah, she'd been this wasn't a decision that she made lightly. That had to go somewhere. And speaking of Amazon, of course, we all know that they have they've gamed the system once again. Bezos and his
minions.
his evil brilliance has decided to take 2 cities as his own rather than 1 and double dip on all the subsidies. One of those is New York, and some of the Amazon employees had a really good idea.
Some Amazon employees have bought New York City condos before the news of their HQ2 location emerged. So that makes sense because real estate prices are going to go up, but I don't know that anything wrong has happened here.
It is not illegal. And if you think about it, like if they had bought stock, for example,
That would not be allowed.
that's insider trading.
Yep.
It's not with real estate, and you think, well, it's kind of the same thing, but what other company has the ability to do that?
Yeah.
It's so rare.
But that means that rents in those districts in New York are going up again.
Oh, they're going to go straight up. I think in that article they talked about they talked to some realtors in the area, and one guy was like, I've moved 51 condos in the last 2 weeks.
Jeez.
That's a good Christmas.
I think the article said it was 10 times the normal rate or something like that. So that's really just nuts.
Crazy. Well, you know what's 10 times the normal rate in the other direction?
Bitcoin. The headline here for the BBC is Bitcoin falls below 5,000.
It's a little bit old.
Oh, we just checked. It's 4,800. Is that what it was?
3,800.
3,800. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So
You guys feeling good about that right
below
now?
4,000. No, not feeling too good about
Not
that.
feeling good at all.
Maybe you'll get a Christmas miracle.
Hodl. Is that what we're doing?
At this point, what else can you do? I mean, Bitcoin was always like, lottery ticket money, but it hurts when you could have
Yeah.
won the lottery and you chose not to because you were greedy.
Or it could be coming back. It could be coming back.
Could be coming back. So now, I mean, if you want to catch the knife, as they say in the investing world, and you can imagine why they say that, because you can get hurt doing that, you might want to buy Bitcoin right now. And if you're in France, good news.
French tobacco shops will start selling Bitcoin and Ethereum starting January of 2019. They're a little late to the party, I think.
That is a little late.
Very late.
Bad timing.
Poorly timed. So the way that's going to work is they've partnered with some online wallet. So you go in and you actually buy a code, not the cryptographic Bitcoin code, but a code that works with the software that then assigns you the amount that you purchased. So
Neat.
I imagine they charge a fee too.
In other news, the state of Ohio has started accepting Bitcoin for tax payments. So that's neat.
So, but what happens if you prepay now
And the value goes down.
or up?
If it goes up, that's great. If it goes down, that's bad.
For Ohio, not for me.
Well,
I burned them hard.
that sounds amazing.
Well, you want to talk about something that's amazing, genuinely amazing, is this scanner.
Human images from the world's first total body scanner. And when I read the headline, I thought this is going into airports, but no, it's actually medical imaging.
Give it
and
some
it's
time.
darn good.
Yeah, give it some
Just
time.
wait. So this is a combo PET/CT scanner.
And it's fast.
And
That's the
here's
thing
a-
that makes it different.
Apparently, a ballerina is being scanned.
Well, they want to see all your internal organs there.
Yeah, this is real time. They don't have. Here's a video. So they can introduce radioactive dye. They don't show that here, but they can watch in real time
Contrast material.
as
Yeah.
the dye goes through your body.
Yeah, like they inject it into your thigh or something, and then it goes in real time. That's honestly, this kind of medical imaging technology has got to be the future because we need more data to understand what's happening over time. A lot of the time, doctors are making decisions on really scant information.
If you were looking for like a bleed or something, I bet that would be really valuable.
Yeah, it's
To
like
be able to see like exactly where your dye is all flowing out to.
Now, here's the question. I imagine a scan, they're probably going to do like a minute or 2 minutes, right?
well, right
for
now
an
it's like
average?
15 or 20.
Okay, let's say it's 10 minutes, right? How much are they going to bill the insurance? For
Tens of thousands of dollars.
tens?
Yeah.
I think you might add a zero. Because these machines have to be super expensive, right?
Yeah, there was a local MRI place that was subsidizing the cost of their MRI by having non-medical MRI. Like if you're a hypochondriac, you could pay like $100 and go get your imaging done, just to keep. The machine was on and it had idle time, so they were like, "Why don't we make some money from that?"
But you didn't have anyone to read your images after, I
Right,
assume.
yeah. And no doctor in their right mind would look. It's like, hey, I got these unofficially, and it's like, well, there's something here. Let's order some official ones.
Yeah, and then there you are. You've wasted $100.
But those were also like $300, right?
Or yeah,
And you could never get that for $300.
right. No, insurance charges at least like $1,500.
Which shows you that what's wrong with the system. Well, not only are you going to be able to find what's wrong inside your body, but you're also going to be able to find your phone.
Google's Find My Device can now map exactly where you left your phone inside some buildings. So it knows from things like Bluetooth kiosks and Wi-Fi and crap like that. So if you leave your phone in a mall, your Find My Device can tell you exactly where inside the mall it is.
I actually had to use this like a few months ago because I went to the grocery store, left my purse sitting in the cart, drove my groceries home, and then was like, where's my purse? And looked it up, and it was sitting in the parking lot.
How bad was that feeling?
Oh
in your
my gosh.
gut
Like my whole stomach just dropped
when
out.
you
I was like,
realized?
no.
Because that's your entire identity in there.
Yeah,
right?
I like dug through my entire car. I was like, surely I just left it in the car. But no, it was sitting in the cart corral thing.
That's amazing that
No one took it.
The other really cool thing about this is it can actually do like vertical location inside of a tall building.
GPS doesn't do that.
Yeah. So the bad thing about it is if it can track your phone when you don't have it, it could also track it when you do have it.
Yeah. Came in handy that one time, but it's like, oh, that's kind of scary to think about.
That's not ripe for abuse at all.
Well, everybody loves YouTube, right?
No.
And we all know that when you watch the Level 1 news, you watch the ads. You watch every second of it.
Or you join the Patreon, or you use the affiliate links in the description.
Or you do both, because maybe you're a wonderful person. Well,
You're that devoted.
I don't know how people will feel about this, but YouTube thinks they'll like it more.
YouTube is testing having 2 back-to-back skippable ads. It depends. Sometimes I'm okay with this, and sometimes I'm not okay with this. Like if I'm looking for a piece of information that's buried in a video and somebody's explaining something to me, most of the time those search results are garbage. So if I'm watching a video that's not relevant, but it bombards me with 2 ads, that's much more annoying than, say, sitting down to watch, I don't know, Hackers the Movie, which is now available for free on YouTube. 2 back-to-back ads for that would be fine.
They do have a whole new collection of older movies that are available just for watching ads on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So,
you mean they didn't release those out of the kindness of their heart?
No. Some 80s and 90s classics, Krista, that you need to see.
We just lost half our viewers to go watch the Hackers movie.
Oh,
It's not even that great. It's okay. It was the first Hacker movie that wasn't just a stinker.
It's very memey. I've not seen it, but I see lots of memes of it online.
Well, my favorite one was the one where they Swordfish, where they had that beautiful UI for the hacking.
Yeah.
It's like, who spent so much time working on this UI? It's amazing. Well, let's talk loot boxes. So, before we read the headline, Krista and I were talking about this story beforehand. She's like, "This story's about Overwatch," and I was like, "No,
because it's an Overwatch loot box. It's from the summer games."
Yeah, that's the reaction that I got.
So,
don't you question me on Overwatch? How dare you?
Actually,
but this is actually about other games.
So Square Enix has pulled 3 games from Belgium after the loot box ban.
Why don't you read the titles of the games because they're ridiculous?
Yeah, it's
they're all really long.
I'm going to read the entire titles. Mobius, Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts Union X, and Dissidia, Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. That's 5 names.
That's important. That doesn't even fit on the app screen. It's like, what?
So these are free-to-play games, and the only monetization is the loot box system. So the only other option would be make all the boxes free, which would just let everybody immediately win the game, I guess. You might be able to grind for them. But they've said, you know what? If you're not going to let us have the loot boxes, then you just don't get to play the games.
So,
sorry.
Banned in Belgium. You can still get luge lessons in Belgium, but not those games, apparently.
But you can't get luge boxes. Well, one of the common things that we always talk about on the news, and at this point I include these stories just so we can think back and say, remember all those battery stories we did? Where the hell are those batteries?
Well, there's some more now.
Engadget is saying this Chinese startup may have cracked the solid-state batteries. So you read this, I'm pretty skeptical. The bottom line here is that they're saying they can do 400 watt-hours per kilogram, which is about 25% better than our best lithium-ion. But the proposed production volume for this factory is very low. It is perhaps suspiciously low in terms of production volume.
Well, the only thing lower is the amount of details about the technology that they're proposing to do. But they say that they're currently in production. So,
I believe him, for one.
It talks about the power density of lithium-ion type cells, and you can get, like 200 to 300 watts per kilogram is pretty normal. But if you really like cherry pick everything, and it's basically a manual assembly process, you can get 400 kilowatts of batteries that probably won't catch on fire. With lithium ion. So I don't know that this is that much of a leap over traditional lithium ion batteries, but they're going to have to, 25% better is a lot better. They're going to have to supply more details.
But you might not have the limitation of materials.
Yeah, if it's like running on like carbon or something,
Right.
That would be amazing.
So that would be good. No matter how efficient it is, that's good for the future because...
If it requires like strontium-90, we're screwed. That might be why they can't produce it. It's because nobody is mining whatever is needed for those batteries.
Yeah, now they're desperately trying to buy land over whatever resource that is. That's why they don't want to tell us. Well, Thanksgiving, it was a day of giving thanks and remembering what we have and thinking about the people who came before us that gave us these wonderful freedoms. I'm not talking about the rest of you, only Americans. But it's also a day, if you're a giant corporation, of admitting mistakes and hoping no one notices.
If you like the news, like you like learning about the news, you should always look at what news is released on Friday. And whatever news is released on Black Friday, there's always some juicy stuff in there because nobody wants to be working on that Friday.
No, this was Thanksgiving.
It was like Thanksgiving Eve.
So
that was Thursday.
No, Wednesday.
Well, Wednesday, yes. But
So the New York Times on Thanksgiving Eve, Facebook acknowledges the details of the Times investigation. So this is pretty... they said, this is the thing where they said there are a number of inaccuracies on our previous report, but this is the whole like George Soros thing, and just it turns into a mess.
They weren't lying. There were a number of inaccuracies. That number was 0.
But there was a number.
So they scapegoated. I can't remember this guy's name, but we'll take a look at him. Oh, it keeps bringing that thing up. So this guy here. Oh my God, Elliot Schrage. He's the one who fell on the sword for this. He was like, okay, this was my idea.
Sheryl Sandberg survived.
But Sandberg did admit that a couple of emails might have come across her desk detailing all of this. Where before she was like, I don't know anything about that. What?
Oh, is that what you meant by that? I didn't know that's what you meant by that.
How would I be expected to know that? I'm not highly educated.
I'm not in charge of a bunch of stuff at this company.
So this is, of course, the latest scandal in a year of Facebook scandals. We've just been talking about scandal after scandal for Facebook, starting with Cambridge Analytica and trickling on down. And it seems like, based on some, insider reporting, Mr. Zuckerberg is not a happy man or even a happy robot.
I was going to say.
With Facebook at war, Zuckerberg adopts for a more aggressive style.
I like to imagine that the picture here, he's just got like a fedora on, and then he's got like ninja stars, like in a more aggressive personal style.
He's turning into lore.
So yeah, they talk about how in the past, this time of year, he starts doing these like really feel good, like next year I'm going to read 25 books and I'm going to make
like
the world
Oprah.
I'm going to make the world a better place, and we're going to improve the lives
Here's
of children.
my favorite things: warm fuzzy socks.
And now these days it's like, next year, we're going to fix Facebook no matter what it takes, no matter who has to die. And there's a report, not from her, but some people are reporting who are close to Sandberg saying that she doesn't even know if her job is safe. Because he's telling people, I blame you for problem X, and if you don't fix it, then we're going to have a problem.
Wow.
So...
That's a great way to motivate people.
The whole time he's like looking at a picture of your family.
And he knows everything about them because he's got Facebook. You can't hide from him. Well, the biggest thing from the leak that the Wall Street Journal did was Mr. George Soros. And it was intimated that they were targeting him specifically to try and pull the heat off of themselves, which they have now admitted, and he's had a response.
Yeah, the New York Post article is not anything that you would not expect, but literally he's calling for Congress to step in and regulate and provide oversight of companies like Facebook, which, honestly, it's got to be a little tongue-in-cheek for Mr. Soros.
Who couldn't trust that face?
Look at him.
So, yeah, and I hate to agree with him, but they really, really took a low road there. That was a bad idea, Facebook.
It's like, hey, you guys think this is a great idea? Yes, this is a great idea.
Implement it.
Yeah. It was implemented with the dispassion that we've come to know and love from the leader Zuck. Almost sociopathic in difference.
Almost.
Smoked meats.
And leading into our next story, which is an exclusive poll, and this is perhaps one poll that I might actually participate in. Because I often say that polls are useless because what idiot answers a poll? But if they got far along before I hang up on them to tell me what it was about, I would answer these questions.
America sours on social media giants. So this poll talks about adults, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans. What are your thoughts on social media? And it's a bleak picture.
Republicans, definitely not fans. They started out not liking them, and now they really don't like them. But here's the big one. All adults have, pretty much increased, and they got the death cross here, the Facebook death cross, saying that they don't trust them, and they're not good for the world. Probably true. Although the scary thing is 40% think that social media in general is good.
It's nice to keep up with family, but
it's nice to give the elderly a way to see what you're up to without bothering you.
yes. That's what I mean, like with family. Like I can see when my cousin does something, I can like their photo, I can tell them good job, and then
that's such the opposite of togetherness. That's the darkest excuse. Well, actually,
having lived through Thanksgiving, this is the new plan going forward.
That might not be the darkest use of social media.
Tumblr was removed from Apple's App Store over child pornography issues. And Ryan, you said you were surprised by this, correct?
Well, okay, I am surprised by this, but here's the debate that we had. Krista seems to think that this is like fanfic child porn.
I'm not surprised by this at all, just having been on Tumblr before.
So you think this is like children being drawn or painted or rendered?
I would assume so, because Tumblr is like a big mecca for fan art and like fan communities, and especially like there's like the general fandom, say for like Lord of the Rings, and then there's like these weird little pockets of fandom where they draw things that are strange about Lord of the Rings, but
is that also illegal?
Drawn? I don't know. Drawn CP? Not sure.
I assume that this was just, traditional child pornography.
Some of it might be because they talk about how there were images. There is a database of known images, and Tumblr was not updating that database properly, which is one technical issue that they acknowledged.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing the way because we've talked about that before. I guess every time they bust like a dark web server or something, all those images go into a database and they hash them rather than search against them. So you don't have to look at child porn to search for child porn. And Tumblr was apparently using that, but it wasn't enough, or they weren't
updating
correctly or whatever.
Yeah.
So
it must have been real photos then.
You can't argue.
At least some.
Ugh, that's sad.
You can't argue that, free speech ends when other people's rights begin, certainly in the case of child pornography. But it seems like they cut away plenty of healthy flesh to get rid of this tumor.
Their crackdown has ensnared legit blogs in the purge. And so PC Magazine has got an article here about like art blogs and a whole bunch of other stuff like that was also culled. But even with all that culling, Apple still hasn't reinstated Tumblr's iOS app to the App Store.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that. The app going away was the catalyst for all this. Not the fact that they knew there was child pornography. It wasn't until Apple was like, oh, God, we're delisting you because of this.
Tumblr's literally deleting about 4 blogs a minute and just telling Apple to reload until they're happy.
That's why I wasn't surprised by it, because Tumblr, like, it can be a great place for fan art, and then it can also be a horrible, dark cesspool. And you never know what you're going to get when you, like, search something on Tumblr.
Man, The only time I've ever seen Tumblr is when I've hot linked from an image or something that was on Tumblr. But it took me totally by surprise that there was child pornography on Tumblr. 4chan, okay, I expect that, but not Tumblr.
I'm a little bit surprised by Tumblr because people don't usually share photos. It's usually art, but who knows what weird things you could find on there.
The only thing I know about Tumblr is from the Oatmeal guy, and the Oatmeal guy used to have a Tumblr blog, but they couldn't keep it up, and that was when Tumblr first launched.
Tumblr used to be a really good platform, and then they added a ton of JavaScript, and it got real bloated real fast.
I hate that webcomic. I hate the art.
The Oatmeal.
Some of it's funny because it's so true to life.
I used to like the Oatmeal a lot more, and then he got weirdly bitter, and all of his stuff was just like, I hate everything, and it was like, oh, okay.
The weirdly bitter thing is what I identify with, sadly.
I get enough of that. I don't need it in my other web browsing habits. So,
well,
or the Level 1 news, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Over the holiday, I bet there were a lot of unhappy thoughts.
No, I think Thanksgiving's a happy thought holiday.
Well, they thought it was going to be. They probably had like their fall-themed makeup and their, Native American outfit, slutty Native American outfit.
Not for a family gathering, I wouldn't think.
No,
maybe.
for their
Instagram
influencing.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, Recode has an article on influencers on Instagram. Instagram is cracking down on services that sell likes and followers.
Bot accounts, just like Twitter did a few months ago.
Yeah, this is apparently a huge problem, and they are getting a lot of accounts. A lot of people, follower numbers are suffering greatly during the crackdown.
I'm not surprised. I bet some of the agencies we work with will probably be panicked about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, our brand has lost 17 million
We
followers.
don't know why. Yeah.
And
Like, did you pay a bunch of money for those followers? Because that might be why.
If you're not hip to the Instagram thought underworld, you might be saying to yourself, well, who cares, right? Who cares if you lose 10,000 followers? Well, it turns out there's big money.
Inside the pricey war to influence your Instagram feed. Oh my gosh, these people are successful enough they can demand $50,000 or $75,000 to feature like makeup products and crap like that.
They call it, so it started on YouTube where like people would do makeup tutorials on YouTube, and they call them being a beautuber. And then of course when Instagram launched, it moved over to Instagram, and now you have all these like really big makeup blog people, and you can pay to have your stuff featured on there, and it costs quite a bit of money if you want to get one of the big names.
Yeah, they talk about you can start at $5,000 to $10,000, but for a big name, you're talking about 50, 60.
Yeah.
Per product.
Yeah.
So these people are if they're pimping 5, 6 products, they're living very comfortably doing nothing.
It's the equivalent of like what tech channels do. It's just for beauty products.
Some tech channels.
We don't do that, but we would love to do that, but we don't.
We mostly just put computers together, and sometimes when other tech tubers are stuck, they come to us because we're legit.
And nobody's giving us $50,000.
No.
Have you been following? Speaking of, I didn't add a story, but have you been following? So Snapchat has what's called Premium Snap. Have you heard of that?
No.
Well,
I don't use Snapchat.
Yeah.
I'm too
Premium
old.
Snap is some kind of monetization. I don't know exactly how it works, but I think people pay you directly for specific images. Usually,
Well, that's going to lead to porn.
basically it already has. But here's the thing about it. It's income, right? And a lot of these thoughts don't understand taxes.
Just like people on Twitch.
So
I've had enough of that for one lifetime. I don't.
So like the butthurt, the 4chan guys are going around and reporting them to the IRS.
It's amazing.
And they're tweeting. It's like, oh my God, guys, I'm getting audited. Be careful out there.
You realize like the IRS will always find you.
Yeah.
I know quite a few people on Twitch who like brag about not doing taxes and not paying the IRS. And it's like, don't do
They
that.
will hunt you down.
These girls are just ignorant. But I mean,
There's some are malicious though.
Some won't even listen to reason.
it's kind of funny in one, because it's like, they thought that they had this wonderful lifestyle. They didn't realize that they have to do that. But it's two groups of horrible people attacking one another. It's like politics, Like the guys who are attacking them are just mad because they can't have them. And it's something to watch. Certainly.
It's entertaining from the outside, but also a little sad.
And it probably entertains us especially Because we're bitter, hateful Americans. And as the CBC reports,
there's a study to prove it.
We're unique.
Canadians are more polite on Twitter and Americans are more negative. Study looked at 40 million tweets.
So yeah, basically they looked at nationalities and then they separated what words came out that didn't match up with the other nationalities. And of course, you know, the Canadians were saying things like sorry and thank you and please.
I missed the part of this article where it talks about how Trump is one of the only celebrities that doesn't turn off the GPS features of his phone, which is probably driving the intelligence service crazy.
I was going to say it's probably terrifying for his like bodyguards and stuff.
That was pre-presidency.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was when he was just a celebrity. So now, but here's the question: did he do it because he didn't know any better, or because he was just like, "Yeah, go ahead and look where I am. It's amazing. I'm at the most amazing locations."
He was probably doing it on purpose.
The best locations. Everyone knows it.
So the American tweets, unlike the Canadians, our outlying words were stuff like hate and anger and a lot of cursing.
I would believe it. A lot of Americans are working longer hours for less pay and are generally unhappy.
Well, it's the cursing, though. Wouldn't that be kind of a false flag? Because I know some people who just swear.
Not Canadians.
Canadians never swear?
Well,
I don't believe that.
Only when they have to.
Then maybe you need a different dictionary for Canadian because, you know, maybe like a moose on rollerblades is the equivalent of a swear in there. That's crazier than a moose on rollerblades.
Dialect.
Apparently, we go harder on the emojis.
I can see that.
than that. So,
well, Friday is going to be exciting.
Friday's a big nonsense day, and what did we leave out? Security.
Oh, my favorite section.
A lot of security news, some Linux news in the security news, and not really super exciting this week. This is definitely the post-Thanksgiving lethargy.
But we're gearing up for Christmas.
One of us is gearing up for Christmas.
The studio's going to be covered in fluff again.
One of us is gearing up for Christmas. The other two are drinking to forget.
You shouldn't mention that because now they're going to be like, Drunk Stream win. Drunk News win.
Win.
Soon.
All right. I'll see you on Friday.
Bye. Today is the last day before Christmas season officially starts, and it's also our nonsense day here at Level 1 News.
And also security, because security and nonsense go oddly together sometimes.
Christmas season, also known as December.
Yeah, well, you know. This is something the Eurotrash can participate in with us.
Did you just assume my winter holiday?
I did assume your winter holiday.
Well, one of the things...
Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate.
Well, you can't just mention one other Christmas holiday and leave them all out.
Is Kwanzaa?
You're showing favoritism.
Kwanzaa's the other one. I don't think are there any others?
Honestly, I don't know. Happy holidays.
The winter solstice, is that a thing? That's in January, isn't it?
I think so.
So
anyway.
But we're going to talk about security news, and maybe got to be top 5 security repeating instances is the not calling them leaky is not accurate. It's uncovered Amazon bucket. People just simply do not protect their buckets.
They're
Amazon
just covered in pigeon poop.
Finally is doing something about it.
Amazon has rolled out a new security feature to prevent accidental S3 data leaks. New settings will prevent accidental S3 bucket leaks if customers take the time to apply them.
But wait a minute. If customers take the time to apply them, they clearly aren't taking the time because they're not putting a password on their buckets. So
I think all new S3 buckets from this point forward will have this as a default, I think.
No. You have to set this up. So what they're giving you is this settings for this account. And once you set these options, they will be the default on all your new buckets. So you still have to take this step.
But you don't have to think about it when you create a new bucket, because sometimes creating a bucket, you forget.
It might be the case where in a corporate environment, the person who understands AWS sets this up, and then, you know, the
developers that can't be bothered to think about things.
The happy-go-lucky managers who are creating the buckets won't accidentally do the things that they're doing. So probably a good idea. But perhaps falling victim to their own meme is Amazon this week as well.
Amazon sent these really cryptic emails to a lot of people that said, hey, we may have accidentally disclosed your name and address, and we fixed it, and it was a bug. And literally, no one could get any more details out of them than that.
Just name and address, no, other details. But it's just a little disturbing because clearly there was a leak and they're not telling us about it. Isn't that GDPR?
Yeah.
Wouldn't they have to tell us?
I guess it was just in the U.S.
GDPR people could probably get more info, but was it a leaky bucket? Was it a misconfigured security setting? Did they accidentally share information with a third party?
Maybe that's why they did that setting.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, even we got caught. Do something about this. Yeah. Well, if you were, spending time with your family this weekend over Thanksgiving, maybe one of the things that you didn't have time to do that you normally do is, of course, browse the dark web.
As you do.
Because you're away from home, you don't have your setup. Well, bad news, you might be coming back to sites that aren't there anymore.
Popular dark web hosting provider got hacked, and the 6,500 sites are down. And the provider is still looking for the point of entry. Basically, all the sites are down, and they've been down for a while.
There's no backup because part of dark web hosting is no backup, no logging, nothing. So it's just gone. They got database access and just dropped the database, dropped everything. So it doesn't seem like they got into the file system, but he still has no idea how they did it. And it's just a one-man operation. So, unfortunate. Or,
Depending on what was there.
in some cases, maybe not so unfortunate. Well, remember the Windows October update?
It was available, and then it was pulled, and then it was available again, then it was pulled, and I think it's available now.
Had some problems. But the good news is it's back now, and they fixed all the problems, and nothing like that's going to happen again.
Oh, wait. The beta news headline is, and you Office, after pulling the Windows 10 update, Microsoft does the same thing for Microsoft Office. So it turns out that Microsoft not having enough testers on staff is an actual legit problem.
The October update would delete your files. This one, just a little crashy. So
just a little crash.
Not so
Side
much to
crashes.
worry about.
Yeah, the deleting files bug was pretty big.
They are suggesting if you have installed those, go ahead and uninstall them and wait because they have to fix them.
It's going to get a new update soon.
Testing round 2.
Soon, TM.
And maybe, maybe those people who don't put passwords on their S3 buckets, maybe they're just ahead of the game because the future is going to be passwordless.
Well, it's a little misleading. Microsoft now lets you log into Outlook, Skype, Xbox Live, etc. without a password. So if you have a hardware security device, you can use that plus a PIN, plus your face, or plus some Microsoft Authenticator on your phone, maybe one or two other methods. So if you've got this hardware token plus one of those other two things, you can use that to log in instead of a full-on password.
Yeah. And they are talking about more and more systems they expect to go this way. Because, of course, your fingerprint, we've seen clearly not secure because they had the fingerprint hack from last week.
Yeah.
Your face, well, they've beat that. All these various things, they're convenient, but they're not super secure. But when you add the hardware key, that goes a long way.
This will be a lot of fun for that story about the New York background check on handguns for checking social media. It's like you literally can't log into your social media without the token being present, which I think is probably a good thing.
Well, they're just going to say you get no license till you bring us that key. I mean, they don't have to beat your system. They just tell you you don't get to participate until you give it to us.
Like they just completely failed the thing. You're like, oh.
It's probably true, but yeah.
Definitely true. But they're very particular about who they let have a handgun license in New York. You know what the most important thing about getting a handgun license in New York is? Tens of millions of dollars. Because if you look at the list, it's a public list. It's all celebrities and government. Well, we talked last week that there was a whole new slew of Spectrum meltdown, and it seems like every week. It seems like it's snowballing.
Yeah.
Like we used to get one a week.
Snowballing.
Then we get 2 or 3. Last week we got 7. So where does it end?
Linus Torvalds has been looking at the performance hit on Linux, and Spectre and V2 patches and some of the other patches have been rolled back. The patch is causing as much as a 50% drop in performance in some Linux workloads, and these are mitigations that are designed to try to make it so that you can leave hyper-threading enabled but not really suffer the performance penalty. And so they're just saying, no, just disable hyper-threading if you're that worried about security, because that will have the same effect, and disabling hyper-threading is not as much of a performance penalty as this.
And also, the Spectrum meltdown stuff, as much as it's in the news, we still don't know if anybody's actually used it maliciously.
A nation state certainly can, but criminals, it's a little bit more challenging.
Nation states probably are going to get in one way or the other.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a terrible way to think about it, but it's probably true. So yeah, the individual user probably. I mean, if you're on like some mission critical CIA computer, you can turn off hyperthreading.
Yeah.
You know, just wait, just wait and get it later.
If you're Amazon, it's a little more annoying because all of a sudden your profit margins have shrunk pretty substantially.
Well, that's true. But it's okay because you just take away the bathroom breaks from the workers till you make up.
Squeeze them a little bit more. It's like, I just gave you a raise. You're going to have to learn to pee less.
Don't squeeze me. I'm full of urine.
Maybe they just have drains all over the floor and just,
Catheters.
Oh, yeah.
The Amazon Basic catheter.
Amazon bought Whole Foods. Now they just need to buy some medical supply company and problem solved.
They probably already have one of those. Well, Ford, the car company, they're not doing so great in terms of car sales. The truck market, that's pretty much all they have left. People, not super into their passenger cars. And do they even have a electric vehicle self-driving contender?
That's not vaporware.
So the question is, how is Ford going to make money? And they have a very novel answer.
They're going to use customers' personal data to boost profits. Turns out Ford's got all kinds of information about you because of all these computers in your car. They know where you are, what neighborhoods you're in. They can infer demographics. There's a lot they can do with that data. And advertisers are salivating at getting that kind of individual data.
Well, the most disturbing one he brings up is the financing arm. He's like, we know where you work. We know how much you make. We know all kinds of stuff. Why aren't we using this data? So this was on a conference call. And he was very cavalier about how Ford isn't selling this data aggressively enough to make up the lost sales. And a lot of people reacted, as you might expect, poorly to those statements. And he sort of talked it back and he was like, oh, we respect your privacy, blah, blah, blah. But it definitely seems like car companies might go toward this whole...
We respect your privacy until we don't, and it can make us money.
Yeah.
Although I still think the amount of telemetry they gather is probably dwarfed by the amount of telemetry gathered by even more, I would say, modern car companies like Tesla. So if Tesla ever gets in dire financial straits, I worry about that kind of data collected by Tesla as well.
I've been reading about the using the CAN bus and reading that. It turns out OnStar from GM logs your CAN bus.
Oh, wow.
And they'll actually send you a report at the end of the month, and it's like, hey, here's some issues we've found with your car, if they find anything.
So they'll have that in your exact GPS location and times of day. And
remember that new car-to-car communication system that just went in? So they got all that data too. Direction, speed, and like all the any kind of telemetry about how you're moving.
So I got to find that SIM card and remove it, huh? That's what you're telling me?
I don't know. It's being uploaded.
I think there's a SIM card buried in that system somewhere. You can take it out, and then the whole thing falls apart.
You might be able to.
Then it
Literally
probably
the
won't
whole
start.
car
It's like, I can't see the satellites in head. It won't start. That's why all those cars in The Walking Dead are just stuck on the highways, that they won't start because...
And yet it's always the newest year's car. It's a curious thing about Walking Dead.
Well, you're right before the fall. Everybody was flush with money.
Of course, yeah.
Well, one thing that we already know, of course, about phones is that they're listening. And they're always listening. But it seems like more and more, the technology just keeps getting more interesting and better.
Now, Google and Apple have both denied this is happening, but Factor Daily, I guess, has some more research they've done on that.
Well, this is third-party stuff.
Yeah, and this turns out it's true that Google and Apple are not doing it, but third parties are.
Krista, what do you think about this image here?
I was going to say it's an interesting illustration. Interesting being the operative word.
It's kind of hard to tell that's an ear if you hadn't just read the headline.
It's like they took vector icon illustrations and then put them on this weird gradient background and then just photoshopped an ear on top of the vector. It's strange.
But this, I'm trying to find the name.
Zapper.
Yeah, Zapper. So Zapper it's not an app. It's more like a library that other apps can use.
Get paid for including it in your app.
Right. Zapper will actually pay you to put Zapper on your popular app. What does Zapper do? Zapper listens and tries to discern what you're up to based on the sounds around you. So, for example, If it hears like, metal on ceramic clinking and glasses tinkling, hey, you're in a restaurant. Log that. Pay attention to where they are. Hit the GPS, figure out what restaurant they're at. Say they were at a restaurant. If it hears music, like you're in a store or something, it's like, okay, what radio station are they listening to? What store are they at? Figure all these things out. We can sell this.
Yeah. So it's not like it's sending literally everything to the cloud, but you are giving up a huge amount of information from it being able to detect your circumstances, log that information, and then send that information textually to some service when
it has to be listing a large amount of the time,
Yeah.
if not always.
Yeah.
And you're agreeing to this when you're that 100-page terms.
That free game, not actually free.
Yeah. So think about that when you're installing apps. I'm at the point where I won't install anything.
Yeah.
It's just like, I can't even use that. No, I'm sorry.
I can compile APKs from source, and that's probably okay. And then sideload them. Pixel Dungeon.
People ask us what we do with our phones, and
I don't.
we just don't. Yeah.
Well, you might be able to do that, but what if you do it on a system that has a rootkit?
ZDNet has this new article. There's a new Linux crypto miner that steals your root password and disables your antivirus. So this is bad.
As you might imagine.
As you might imagine, but it's 1,000 lines of shell script, and it's actually pretty good. It's pretty well. It's not great, but it's pretty well put together.
It's feature rich.
If there is a danger that people on your systems are running an out-of-date WordPress, you need to be worried about this, because they can elevate from their sandboxed rooted user to full root with this vulnerability, because it's chained vulnerabilities. It tries to get shell access, and then it uses the shell access that it has to exploit those kernel vulnerabilities that your machine has, because you haven't rebooted it in the last couple of weeks because there have been some problems in the Linux kernel.
And as soon as it can get write permission, it pulls the rest of itself down.
Which could be anything.
And it uses all of that to get even more stuff. At the heart of it, it's basically it's mining. It's mining Monero. Hilariously, it stops and deletes all other Monero mining malware that it finds, which is nice, right? If we could just have that as like a vigilante script.
I've seen that for like WordPress, where like the vigilante script mines Monero and then patches WordPress so that WordPress can't get infected anymore.
But here is the
I hate WordPress.
the even worse part.
It's terrible.
If it can sniff out SSH keys for other systems that are stored, it will go ahead and introduce itself to those as well, so it's self-replicating.
It's so nice. It's not terrible. It's not nation state, but it's not terrible.
Well, you're saying it's not terrible in terms of how good it was written.
Yeah.
It's very terrible.
Patch those WordPress installations.
Or just don't use WordPress. That'd make my job way easier.
Basically, what you're saying is essentially, look at the efficiency he stabs those babies with. That's incredible.
Speaking of things like that, Rowhammer's back in the news because Rowhammer can now bypass ECC memory protections. This is a little bit of a non-story, I think, but these researchers have demonstrated Rowhammer, which is a classical attack on system memory. Basically, you can write the same pattern to a particular row in memory over and over again and affect adjacent rows in memory. The problem with ECC is that ECC automatically corrects single-bit errors and detects 2-bit errors. But with 3 or more bits, you're not guaranteed to detect that error. And so this thing tries to introduce errors in adjacent memory cells 3 bits at a time in a controlled way so that the error correction routines don't detect the error.
But of course, every bit that you add increases the complexity and the time it would take because you're hitting it over and over hoping that what you want to happen will happen. It's not going to happen every time.
Yeah.
You're sort of like, just hoping to get lucky. I think the best case scenario was 30 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Worst case was 50 some hours.
Yeah.
So you're going to be somewhere in the middle there.
And
to flip one bit.
And that's somebody that has a fairly high level of access to the system in the first place. So it's not super practical.
It's definitely never been seen in the wild and may never. But it's interesting.
It's interesting. It's still a thing.
Yeah. And I'm sure they'll get better at it. We'll have Rowhammer 2 next year or whatever.
It's going to be fun when we start doing, when DRAM refresh cycles start changing the hashing pattern that's used to actually refresh things in the cell. So physically, different things are stored in the cell every refresh, but, it's sort of decomposited back to the original bit pattern whenever it is actually retrieved.
It's a well-known truism that snitches get stitches. But in China, snitches get $86,000.
China is offering its citizens up to $86K to snitch on porn. So they sentenced an erotica writer to 10 years in prison, that was actually international news. That was
so we got to
just a writer.
We got to talk more about that. It was just text description of lesbianism. That's all. There were no pictures.
Yeah, 10 years.
10 years.
And that was for deviancy, I think.
Are they doing
was.
that with straight erotica as well?
Well, pornography at all is not allowed.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So, like, if she had been writing man on woman, would it?
I don't know.
You think they would have had such a harsh sentence on her?
It seems like they are really cracking down on the non-mainstream sexuality, certainly. But the crazy thing is, they will reward you. Now, it's not always $86,000, but you do get something every time it results in an arrest.
The article talks about distribution. So if you're distributing things, so presumably, I guess, I don't know. I don't really know.
If you're a bookstore and like you happen to carry a book like 50 Shades of Grey but translated, like
you get that room in the back.
Yeah.
You were talking about earlier about Tumblr, right? Like those people. Well, apparently those people are just in abject fear. They're tweeting. It's like, if you have any of my stuff, please delete it, because all they have to do is find one instance of it that you have your name on, and you're done.
That's a really scary time.
Yeah, just some furry stuff that you did. Nope.
Dark timeline in China.
Ryan always tells me that I should use my illustrating powers for evil and do like furry commissions, and like this story tells me I shouldn't do that.
Well, but this is the land of the free, Krista. You can do that
land
here.
of the free.
We're
not anything like China at all.
I'm not saying you should do it, just because it's the thing to do. I'm saying people will pay you so much money to do it.
I just don't. No.
I don't think that I would naturally have thought about those really horrifying things.
There's a reason there's a clause on our Patreon when I wrote all the tiers, like, I reserve the right to say no to your drawing request.
But they also talk about in that article, they've, interviewed some people, and they were like, what kind of chump works? I don't work. I just sit around all day looking for weird stuff on the internet and turning it in, getting my rewards.
That's terrible.
That is
Man,
really
what
terrible.
kind of like society are you building where it's like you're constantly against your neighbor?
Well, what kind of society are you building when everything is under surveillance and you have a score?
Yeah.
Maybe this kind?
Oh, now would be a good time for the score story, but that's fine.
You know, the U.S. is just like waiting to implement that themselves.
We're only one away from the score story, so we'll rearrange.
Yeah, it's like you were saying, it's like we're nothing like China. So there's this amazing story from Slate that's talking about the Department of Homeland Security has a problem when people come to the U.S. and they're maybe going to be naturalized or get a green card or whatever. How do we know if they're any good? Well, we're going to start looking at their credit score.
That's such a bad, especially someone coming from another country. It's like, who knows what horrible thing they're fleeing from?
Literally, the Slate headline is, your credit score is not a reflection of your moral character. But that's what DHS is going to do.
So here's the question. Let's say a Chinese national visits the West, right? So to get into the country, we look at their credit score. Do you think if they do anything weird while they're here, we'll report back to China? Because we're not really friendly with China right now. But we do seem to like this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's data sharing, it's got to be quid pro quo, right?
One would think.
What does China get out of it?
Well, the more scary thing is this DHS thing applies not to Chinese nationals that would come to the U.S., but literally anybody who would come to the U.S. And it's like, let's use your credit score to figure out. It's like, oh, your credit is perfect. Yes, let's fast track your application for citizenry. That just seems something's wrong with that.
There
You
is
could be a perfectly good citizen of whatever country you're coming from, but you're just fleeing for some other reason, or you have a better business opportunity, or...
But there is the gamification of the credit score, because I'm going to be buying furniture for my house, and one of the furniture stores has 6 years 0% interest. And it's like, I don't really need that financing, but I could probably improve my credit score. It's like,
You sound like my boyfriend.
Well, I mean, Krista, you're the direct opposite. You completely ignore your credit score.
I do. I mean, I pay my debts, but I'm not looking to increase it artificially by buying furniture using credit I don't need.
Well, why wouldn't you? It's there for you
I
to
have the cash on hand. I save for things I want.
If nothing else, the net present value of the cash is higher now than it is in 6 years from now.
There's also the opportunity cost, Krista. You can invest that money.
You could earn probably 2 or 3% without even really trying.
If you make 0.1% on a 0% loan. You're wrong about this one.
Speaking of things that is definitely wrong and maybe a crime against humanity, let's talk about this article from The Verge.
The robotics that no one asked for.
This chest-mounted robot feeding arm could stuff your face when you're too full to move. I think they missed on the headline here because this you got to see the picture of this chest-mounted robot first. All right, so it's a couple with the chest-mounted robot thing. So get this. The robot has a camera on it, and it does facial recognition, and it will feed the other person if you aren't looking at it or you look unhappy.
I missed this story, and this looks like the alien.
Whoever's smiling gets the bite. But it's not very... It's not super accurate. Now, can you imagine...
This is the most romantic date I've ever thought of.
Can you imagine some 1984 stuff where it's like, you will smile, sir. You will smile or you won't eat. And, and there's the robot just... Because they talk about if neither person is paying attention or smiling, the robot just sort of like... Hovers in between. It's like, who wants it? Who wants the delicious treat? Better smile.
I'm just imagining a cafe in China in about 5 or 6 years, and the AI, maitre d' is watching literally every group of people in the restaurant. And so there's a couple that's eating, and because they perfectly use their utensils and they use their napkin after every bite, and it's like a perfectly executed, choreographed whatever. It's like you get 10 extra points on your social score, and they're like, "Oh, we can finally buy a house now. This is amazing."
Those robots, though,
they make no sense. No. There is no...
I guess maybe for a medical thing where it's like we were talking about Lou Gehrig's patients where it's like they can't feed themselves or something.
Yeah, that's what I thought this article was going to be.
But it's just like a novelty.
That's not what they're building it for. I mean, I guess you could convert it, but it's some sort of weird dating apparatus.
Dear sirs, did you know that your dating apparatus could actually improve humanity for other people rather than this other nonsense bullshit, whatever that you're working on?
But it won't make me money if I just sell it to sick people.
Won't get the headline if it's not creepy robot feeder hand thing.
I would cover that story. That's a great story.
We covered the Lou Gehrig story.
Yeah, right. Well, Samsung. So, a lot of people in the West might not realize, but Samsung basically rules South Korea with an iron fist.
Yeah, I've heard that.
They control basically everything that happens there. And they have a lot of factories, as you can imagine. Also, a lot of people might not realize they make cars, washing machines,
wrenches,
TVs. They make everything there. And they've had a bit of a mea culpa.
Samsung apologizes to workers who had miscarriages and got cancer from factories. We have failed. So there's this big investigation, and this has been an ongoing thing for the better part of a decade. And it turns out that this is a pattern.
I think making displays was a big part of it, right?
Yes.
All those displays they were making exposed them to quite a lot of chemicals that you shouldn't be exposed to, at least not in that quantity.
Especially when you're pregnant.
Definitely not when you're pregnant. And so there's a lot of cancer and miscarriages, and they're just saying, sorry, which seems a little hollow.
We didn't know. We didn't. They knew.
They probably knew.
They knew.
You think they threw in a free flat panel TV?
Well, they're not worth anything now. That would have been worth something 10 or 15 years ago.
Well, in India, they had a bit of a political row, and it seems like at the heart of it was a fax machine.
This one I missed.
What year is it?
I didn't understand what was happening.
Okay.
What?
Yeah.
So there is, the names in here, forget it. I can't keep them apart. Even the acronyms, I don't know what's going on.
I can pronounce cashmere.
So there's a guy who's in power right now, but he gained power after the last leader left for some reason. So it's one of those situations where you can take power by forming a coalition, right? So it's like if you have the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th ranked parties, but they all join together, they can jump to number 1 in power. So several of these coalitions were formed. Now, because of, government technology, you have to fax in your application to form a coalition. This guy turned off his fax machine.
Fuels political crisis.
They were like freaking out because it's whoever gets there first, because they both had like the same amount of coalition, and they were tweeting furiously. They got a picture here,
but I don't understand like why that.
Why such an inefficient system exists?
Well, it's the
why
government.
is it written in English?
So this is the document that needs to be faxed.
Probably because there's so many dialects.
And when this went in, the fax machine just wasn't working. Now this guy actually, his excuse is, I'm not going to accept these anyway, so it doesn't matter that the fax machine was broken. So
okay, so but it's literally
Crisis
all it
averted.
was. So they just turned off. I didn't under. It's like, why does this have to be?
well,
faxed?
he
Why
says
can't you
he says it was broken.
get another one?
But if it was broken, it was very convenient because it kept him in power long enough to announce that he wasn't going to accept their.
That seems like a little bit of corruption.
Maybe. And also things that might be corrupted.
The Overwatch player base. A toxic Overwatch player has changed his ways after Blizzard explained his ban. I actually saw this Reddit post in real time.
You know what's not clear from this article is if they lifted the ban.
I think he was only banned for like a week, so I doubt that they did. It's unlikely. So this guy was like, I don't see why I was banned, so he contacted Blizzard support. He thought it was a mistake.
And I'm quoting.
Yes, read out what this guy told his
I'm
teammates.
quoting Googlebot. You guys are fucking terrible. Holy fucking shit. How can you be this high level and be this bad at every character? And he says, that's not okay to say in hindsight.
Yeah.
In hindsight, maybe. And then someone in that thread, I don't know if it mentioned this in the article, but like in the thread, someone was like, not to be mean, but like, how old are you that you would be typing this kind of stuff in chat? And he was like, oh, I'm 30. I have a kid and a wife. And it was like, oh, no. I understand getting like upset at teammates, but I don't understand the people who feel the need to like yell out in voice chat or even take the time to start typing in the middle of the match. Like, I don't understand it.
I think that was at the end of the match. Maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe not. Some people don't. Sometimes they don't wait. They just immediately start flaming.
But, with respect to your question about did he get it back, that was actually the appeal. So he got banned, appealed,
Yeah.
and someone actually called him. And they were like, let's just go over your history real quick. And because he was faced with, an aggregate of his hatefulness over the years, he sort of saw the light, I guess.
How do you not remember that, though? Like,
You'd be surprised. I mean, we deal with it on the Level 1 forums from time to time, and it's like, why would anybody say this?
Why am I getting a temporary ban? And it's like, well, let me look over your file real quick.
And it's that, the anonymity of the internet. You'll take it further.
I control. It's like, no, come on, don't do that.
Every time there's an incident in the forum, we write a note so that way everyone knows exactly what happened and what date it happened on.
Which we should not have to do.
We can see your history. I hate to have to say that, like I'm a teacher, but like we can see what you've done. We keep records.
And we will lower your social credit if you mess with us.
Joining the Patreon does not raise your social credit either.
You do get a check mark on the forum.
But you do get a check mark.
But we do like you more. Or at all. Well, Krista, of course, has recently adopted a dog. And I don't think anybody would accuse Rue of being too smart. But having a dog that's too smart could get you in trouble.
This guy was crushed to death by a forklift truck driven by his pet dog. So first of all, this guy was 70 and he was laying a rock wall. 70 and laying a rock wall. That just seems crazy.
What a stud.
I mean, he doesn't... when is that picture from? He doesn't look 70 at all.
This might have been a previous picture.
Well, he looks perfectly... I think he's fine.
70. What has he been eating? Jesus. And, so he was outside the tractor or whatever this was, and the Jack Russell Terrier apparently hit a lever while he was in front of it, and that crushed him to death.
He apparently left it in neutral.
I didn't realize it killed him.
And it was a very simple flick of the switch to put it back into drive. Like, he left it running and ready to go. For convenience, probably, because who's going to mess with it, right?
Now that the machines have a taste of blood, they're coming for us all. This was your warning.
So this was actually more horrific than it seems at first. So what actually happened is once the dog kicked it into gear, he heard it moving, turned around, and that's when the wheel smushed him against the gate.
Oh.
So no one knows how long he was there before he died.
That is terrible.
Listen, get a stupid dog. Don't get a smart dog.
Don't get a smart dog. Get a Roo in your life.
It might kill you.
Even, like, I've had a couple times where I've taken Roo somewhere, and, like, I'm like, oh, I need to get gas. I turn the car off and, like, make sure all the doors are shut and locked so that way Roo doesn't hurt herself or me.
If it was a family farm, I wonder if the coroner would let the family throw the guy into the biodiesel tank so that he could, die the way he lived.
Well, that would be a very efficient use of a corpse, wouldn't it?
It would.
He might have signed his license. He might be giving away his organs.
Could you
The ones
donate
that
your
weren't
organs
squished.
to the biobleeder?
No, if you are asphyxiated, there's nothing left that's usable.
No, he was. Well, I mean, like his lungs were just simply crushed.
Yeah.
So, maybe. No, I think everything's damaged there.
Yeah.
Well, that was an excellent segue. We sort of walked on top of it.
The Guardian has this amazing headline that says "Dead fish to power the cruise ships." Kind of like the hypothetical farmer might power his biodiesel thing by becoming biodiesel himself from the
I would be
biological waste.
More impressed with this if they used the waste from the passengers, because once those things get out to sea, they're just dumping crap in the ocean.
You know, they actually might, because the way this thing works is it bleeds. So this is we talked about this before. I think we talked about it recently, but it uses the gas that comes off. I think it's methane.
Yeah.
Just rotting material.
Yep.
It bleeds it off. So in China, they actually use this with all of their farm waste and get the gas out of it. And remember those dairy farms? Mm-hmm. Like the cow poop goes right in here, and they heat the barns with it.
Yeah, you can, not just the biogas, but even the leftovers after that, you can get a lot of stuff that's useful for fertilizer and...
Yeah, it's like a slurry.
Yeah, secondary stuff. So it's actually like the act of processing it and getting the gas is just the first step toward recycling. So it's enough to power cruise ships, apparently, or at least to assist with powering cruise ships.
Well, the Norwegians figured out, they're like, you know what? We've got two huge industries. Fish processing, fisheries, and tree cutting. And guess what? Both of those create massive amounts of bio waste. So just throw them in the cruise ship. Let them rot. I bet that's a terrible job dealing with that.
Would you guys go on a cruise?
I think so. Even though the internet access is limited, it'd probably be fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean...
I'm not sure if I would like someone telling... I mean, I know you can go wherever you want on the ship, but like I wouldn't want to be on a tiny metal boat or a huge
they
metal
aren't
boat.
tiny.
Yeah, they're
massive.
They're
With
massive.
all those other people and like...
There's not really even that, like the density of people's not really more than like, say, a Las Vegas casino.
Yeah, and plus, if you can just keep nighttime hours if you want.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different group of people.
If you've been on a cruise, tell us how it was.
Engagement challenge.
In the comments, because I'm kind of torn on whether or not I'd like one.
We're going to hear 500 descriptions of the Star Trek cruise.
Is
George
that,
Takei. Yeah.
is that a thing?
George Takei will go on a cruise and
Ooh.
just be trapped on a boat with those monsters for 2 weeks.
Probably makes a lot of money out of that.
It's
though.
almost more than he can bear every time.
No, I think he loves attention so much.
Yeah, I think
that-
he would like it.
Yeah. Now, Shatner might throw himself off the side.
He only advertises cruise ships with that. Was it Priceline that he did the promotions with?
Yeah.
He claims he got screwed on that. Didn't that company get like 2,000% profit or something at some point?
Yeah, they did really well, and then they didn't do so well.
That was a good story. And he sold early, and I think he bought back in at the top.
Oops.
Well, let's talk about planes. Of course, we know that plane technology, we're always trying to get better planes. And we know that because China's stealing our turbofans. And it's a serious situation. So what do? Let's get rid of the turbines altogether.
The Guardian has a story about a plane here that has no moving parts, and it has taken flight. It's a carbon neutral air travel kind of thing. It looks like a glorified glider.
I mean, look how
Yeah,
shitty
it's
it
not.
is.
You scrolled down and I was not impressed.
But the technology is kind of impressive. So you can see here, this is ionizing particles and pushing them from the front to the back.
When I was a kid, I built a toy like this out of some aluminum foil and wires and an old TV transformer. It's like with a high enough voltage, the thing would just sort of float in midair. But I never thought anybody would be able to make that efficient enough to actually produce wind with it.
Well, it's thrust because it takes the nitrogen out of the air and just pushes it backwards, which pushes the other wind particles. And now it doesn't work very well.
No, it
Not
didn't.
efficient.
Yeah, it's not great. But they did prove that this kind of thing is possible. Whatever, the space flight one turned out to be not true, right?
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to push.
The M drive. The M drive is probably not true. It was probably experimental error, but we did learn a little bit of new science out of that.
What's the nitrogen concentration toward the top? Does that go down or up?
I think it goes down.
So height, like flying high might be a difficulty for this kind of thing.
Could be, yeah. And ionizing that much air, that might not be the best idea.
But I'm sure we'll try it.
Would you ride on this plane?
Well, I don't think anybody's going to ride.
Well, say that they made a passenger version that you could go to Taipei in.
I don't think you could put a squirrel on this.
Listen,
That would add too much weight. Because I guess this is just all battery, right?
Yeah. It would probably be a lot quieter than a traditional plane.
that's what I was thinking. It'd be kind of nice.
Yeah, I don't think it makes any noise. Of course, moving at speed through, you're always going to have some kind of sound.
Oh, yeah, just the air sound, yeah. Now, we always talk about China and AI, and they've got the AI in parts of Beijing that watch everything that you do, and like if you jaywalk, you get a ticket, and if you spit or eat on the subway, all these things factor in and detract from your social score and things like that. Well, the CEO of a major company has been caught in with that system, and the headline is AI mistakes a bus side ad for a famous CEO and has charged her with jaywalking.
Do you think she's upset about this?
Yeah, so the AI saw her on the side of a bus, and it was like, whoa, she just jaywalked.
And she jaywalked fast. Way too fast.
So isn't that hilarious? The AI is like, oh my gosh, the face recognition was good enough that it nailed her. I mean, it absolutely, it's like this person is in the ad, whatever, but she didn't jaywalk.
Well, that makes sense because, these high fidelity images. Was it a digital ad or print?
I don't know. Doesn't say.
That'd be an interesting.
Yeah. But what if there was just a really reflective vehicle and it caught your reflection jaywalking? Now, she obviously has the means to get this,
taken care of.
Plus, I'm sure her score is quite good.
Yeah.
But, Joe Average gets caught in this. How hard is it for that person to undo or prove? I was like, no, this wasn't me.
Borderline impossible.
And I could see, if all you got to do is print a picture, what if I just print a picture of someone else?
Wouldn't you have to use your cell phone at that point and be like, check the logs? My cell phone wasn't in that area.
But you just hide behind it as you jaywalk.
Speaking as someone who got a speeding ticket because of a typo in their driver's license number, like something was off by one number and it happened to be somebody else, and then they were like going to take away my license. Yes, these things can happen, and it takes days to weeks to resolve.
But in China, I bet the bureaucracy is way worse.
Probably.
So you might never get it back. That's definitely a chilling tale when it comes to the social score. And a ridiculous tale when it comes to patents. I love that, like a company knows that they have to just cast a really wide net with patents. And they will literally throw anything against the wall. And this one really cracked me up.
We should use this patent artwork on a piece of store merch.
Forget VR treadmills. Google has patented motorized omnidirectional VR sneakers. So Google's idea would cancel out walking locomotion and replace it with, you're basically moving in place.
Look how stupid this is.
They're like Heelys. Do you guys remember Heelys?
Yeah.
I kind of, if like that was a little bit beyond the age that I would have had them, but I probably would have loved Heelys.
But you also have to look at these treads. This is insane. So the idea here is, they have that circle, and the shoes are, the VR is aware of them the same way it's aware of like the little handheld things. And you can walk around freely, but your shoes are constantly moving you back to the center, no matter where you go. So if you're running in game, those wheels are just working against the run. But I think most people have experienced putting on a pair of skates. It's very difficult to stay up. So if you have wheels working against you while you run, how do you not fall down?
That would be difficult.
I don't think there's going to be enough sensory data between how you intend to move from your musculature to the wheels to actually deal with that, because the wheels could lock in place. Like if the wheels were locked in place and you run, you are definitely going to move forward. So, but I think if the wheel starts to move when you don't expect it relative to your other foot, that will cause you to trip and fall.
It would have to, because what game are you standing still long enough to be recentered?
If they figured out the math for that, that should have been in the patent, and they should patent the bejesus out of that. But that's not in the patent.
Yeah. So
Just those really cool diagrams.
Yes.
But the patent is enough to keep somebody from doing it.
I would think so, yeah. But the real patentable thing there would have been the math to do all that.
But if they could come up with that and you didn't fall down, it would be incredible.
That would be incredible.
Because now you have a video game.
Not going to work on carpet.
Well, you could, you'll have like a little mat that you put down or
You
something.
think people who have this are going to have, a crappy apartment with carpet? No. They have hardwood floors.
Yeah, because that's going to cost $5,000 and that's all they can afford.
Speaking of things that cost $5,000,
Well, not $5,000. Now, before we show the headline, let me just give you a laundry list here. All right, are you ready?
2 luxury cars,
500 cows, 2 luxury cars, 2 bikes, a boat, some mobile phones, we don't know how many, and $13,800.
what can you buy with that?
A 16-year-old bride from South Sudan.
It turns out this is the thing that happens in South Sudan, and Facebook facilitated it because that's how you do business in South Sudan.
Well, they have
apparently.
the marketplace on Facebook, and here in the States, that's commonly used to peddle old electronics or furniture or, advertise a rental property you own, but I guess there it's...
This is new, never before been used.
So is she.
Oh.
So the age of consent in Sudan is actually 18. So this is for sure illegal, but it's
Super
sort of
common.
a local custom.
Yeah.
And everybody just turns a blind eye to it.
Well, the Sudanese government said this was the type of dowry that occurs as prelude to marriage, but it sure looks an awful lot like some much less tasteful things that we've seen on eBay in the past here before.
Well, what's a dowry other than, that's basically what that is. Now, here's the thing, okay, you get sold as a child bride. That sucks. No arguing about that. She was the guy she was sold to, she will be his 9th wife. That sucks. Probably an older guy. But she can be proud. This is the highest value that's ever been paid for a child bride in Sudan. 500 cows.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of cows.
That's a lot of money even here in the U.S.
Yeah. So.
Ugh.
That's the correct response, Krista, is ugh. But I wonder if the child brides themselves, do they feel like it's a horrible thing, or is it just like...
Well, let's see. You're marrying someone you don't know who's probably going to rape you repeatedly. You're not going to get any of the stuff that your husband got in the dowry, or vice versa, whatever.
But
You're not getting anything out of it, really, except for pain and suffering.
But you're setting your family up.
Who just sold you like livestock.
Now, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm saying, culturally, is it considered... I guess they just don't... Even if they thought it was terrible, they don't get a voice, so we'd never know.
Well, the South Sudanese government has not reacted it took Facebook 7 days to take this down. It was reported immediately, and they were like, the auction was 3 days, and they didn't respond to it for 7 or 10 days, which I think is unconscionable.
Well, they didn't go through any sort of Facebook payment system, but
Yeah.
that
They listed it.
Yeah,
Probably on
and-
the marketplace.
But Facebook can say, oh no, this is not I know you guys are new to the internet and the first world here, but that's not how we do things in society.
We usually just sell things like DVD players or, old cell phones.
And it was
Couch.
there was no subterfuge. It was,
Yeah.
I have this daughter. What will you give me for her?
Yeah.
So,
Yay, people using Facebook in the wrong way.
well, that guy is a very rich man now, at least in cows, which, hey, that's riches, right? But some people who aren't rich are millennials here in America. And it seems like Hasbro might be having a little fun with them.
I think the ad agency behind this, their days must be numbered because the CNN article is amazing. It's monopoly for millennials is not about real estate because you can't afford it anyway. Hasbro has said through whatever agency.
It's so funny that you guys are poor, says rich company Hasbro.
Yeah.
Look at Mr. Pennybags. He's got the Insta Snap glasses, and he's taking a selfie, and he's got a coffee.
Yeah, they revamped Monopoly for millennials, but this is actually offensive.
You're
It's
not
bizarre.
You don't ever acquire property in this in this game of Monopoly.
Because you can't.
Because, of course, you're a millennial. You'll never have property. I, on the other hand, I'm getting some property. Suck on that, millennials.
In some definitions, you would be considered a millennial.
Yeah, they do mention that there's a debate about where the cutoff year is, and I'm the year. So maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I'm Schrodinger's millennial. But it's just about having experiences here. So you land on an experience.
Oh.
And I don't know how that, how do you have to pay other players in that scenario? I don't know how that would work.
You don't pay them. You just offer to do freelance work for them.
It's
good exposure.
For the exposure.
That's how Hasbro would have it. The email was really horrifying. It talks about, I don't know, there was like millennial slang in there from the email response from the thing. It's just, adulting is hard when you're a millennial.
Yeah, they did like the meme stuff. Now, they claim that a lot of the people who worked on this were millennials, and it's all in good fun.
Well, avocado toast is our fave. Ray-Bans are on fleek, and cameras, something, I don't know.
One of the little tokens you move around board is a hashtag. You can be the hashtag.
On fleek is used to describe eyebrows. This is trying so hard to be cool.
Well, who knows what any of this stuff means? I don't think Hasbro knows. I think they just sort of put it all in a blender
and hope something would come out that
exactly
was fun and hip.
Well, CNN covered it.
And made Monopoly relevant again, because who likes Monopoly?
How else was CNN going to get free advertising on... I mean, how else was Monopoly going to get free advertising on CNN without this level of nonsense?
Well, the millennial picture is bad in America, let's admit. But it could be worse.
It could be Japan.
Our next story, we literally predicted the day that we covered it.
Let's just get the headline out of the way. Well, let's
show the picture.
Let's take a look at this gentleman. So here's the guy. He's having a wedding, and he is marrying this lady right here.
You might think that that's like some sort of cute wedding prop, but no, that's the bride.
That is a representation of the bride, because she in fact lives at his home as a hologram.
It's Hatsune Miku, as we report. It's Gate Blocks. And the company that makes that actually issues marriage certificates. They've issued 3,700 marriage certificates, as a matter of fact.
They are not binding.
It's just a thing.
So this guy apparently has always been shy and bad with women. But he was working, and there was like a really domineering female manager.
That's what he explained, yeah.
Yeah, and she crushed his spirit to such an extent that he vowed never to be with a three-dimensional woman, and instead bought his gate box and has been faithful, he says, to Hatsune Miku since then.
I think we could probably all relate to that, but that's not the answer. Hatsune Miku is not the answer.
I can't relate to that.
You can't relate. Who can relate to having their spirit crushed by someone, a manager who probably was getting onto him for valid reasons?
Well, Krista, you've crushed some spirits.
Yeah.
What if you found out that you drove somebody
to the arms of Hatsune
to a 2D marriage?
I think that person had pre-existing problems that I probably, whatever I said probably didn't help or change anything. I think that they were going that direction regardless.
Oh my goodness.
So it turns out, did you say how many marriages they had issued?
3,700.
3,700 marriage certificates.
This is why they're not replacement rate in Japan.
That thing came out, what, 2 years ago, a year ago?
We covered it when it came out.
And it's been not more than 2 years.
Yeah. And we predicted this actually took longer than I thought it would happen. Or, well, I mean, presumably...
First time we've heard it covered in English-speaking news.
I would like to know that if somebody is email Gate Blocks, when was the first time they issued a marriage certificate? What was that day? Was it a week, a month after it was made?
Whoever the first guy was, that's smart of them to do. It cost them nothing.
Well, probably they got the email and it was like, holy crap, guys, we didn't even think about that. And it took them a month or two to just spool up the whole service. And then it's like, yeah, we can do that. Give us some money.
So
they weren't planning to do that. It just happened.
This guy invited his entire family. No one showed up.
No one showed up.
He did have 40 guests, though. And I wonder who those were. Those just other
people that are into that.
You think Gatebox?
They probably all met on Tumblr.
Gatebox, they were having the Monday morning meeting, and they were like, anybody that's free this weekend, you got to go to this wedding. It's one of our best customers.
They might have a forum or something associated with it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I just got my Hatsune Miku. And it's like, oh, I love her too. And then you can just talk about your wives.
That's interesting that you bring up that, because he made it clear his marriage is only to his version of her.
Yeah.
So other people can, of course, marry her, and it would not be infidelity on her part. Also of interest, he walked through his day. So she wakes him up, sends him to work. He calls her throughout the day to talk to her on the phone from work. When he's coming home, he calls her, and she has the apartment ready with all the lights on and everything. And then she tells him when to go to bed.
How lonely. That's so sad.
But I mean, she runs his life like a real wife. Like, she tells him exactly what to do, and he just happily does it.
That's not a partnership. That's just bizarre on so many levels.
I do like the other stat from the article, which was in 1980, only 1 in 50 men had never married by the age of 50, and that figure is now 1 in 4.
This is in Japan.
In Japan.
Yeah, in Japan, they're not replacing their population quick enough.
Well, marriage is a ridiculous thing. But I think not being married and only dating 2D women, that's a much larger step to do the latter.
Yes.
Well, that's the last story.
Women today want too much. Like, they expect me to actually clean my house instead of just live in filth. I'm going to get this virtual assistant instead.
Post pics of your waifu on the Level 1 forum.
No, please don't.
We have enough of that already.
Did you...
no plot.
If you look at the comments.
Oh, I'm sure the comments were absolutely awful.
Oh, look who's defending it.
Who could have guessed?
We got a lot of those people on the forum, I'll tell you that.
Oh, that's so unhealthy.
The mind reels. The mind really does reel.
It's so unhealthy.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Make a human relationship. Bye.